Okay, Chair, that's live.
Thank you. Right. I would like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching the live stream of this meeting via the Council's website. Members, you are by now aware of the need to keep your video camera switched on for the duration of the meeting and to keep your microphone muted, except when I invite you to speak. Please click the raised hand function if you wish to speak. Members who wish to make a point of order or personal explanation will need to interrupt the current speaker, and in relation to the former, that's the point of order, must indicate the rule or law and the way in which they consider it has been broken before proceeding. There is always a risk that we may run into technical problems, and I would ask for your patience if we do. Should this occur, I will declare an adjournment while the fault is addressed, and the public broadcast will be paused. If it is not possible to address the fault, the meeting may be abandoned until such times as it can be reconvened. Can I remind members that all virtual meetings will be recorded and that these recordings will be published on the Council's website. Members, I will begin by calling your names to establish your presence. Please confirm you are present. Councillor David Ambrose Smith.
Present.
Councillor Barbara Ashwood.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Anna Bailey.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Henry Batchelor.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Ian Bates.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Chris Bowden.
Present.
Councillor Anna Bradnam.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Simon Bywater.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor David Connor.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Della Costello.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Steve Count.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Sandra Crawford. Maybe joining us later. Councillor Steve Criswell.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Kevin Cuffley. I think we've had apologies from Councillor Cuffley. Councillor Peter Downs.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Lorna Dupre.
Present.
Councillor Liz Every.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Jan French.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Ryan Fuller.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Ian Gardner.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Derek Giles.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Mark Goldsack.
Present, Chair.
Councillor John Going.
Present.
Councillor Linda Harford.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Nicola Harrison.
Present.
Councillor Anne Hay.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Mark Howell.
Good morning, Chairman.
Councillor Sam Hoy.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Peter Hudson.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Bill Hunt.
Present, Chair.
Councillor David Jenkins.
Present.
Councillor Linda Jones.
I'm working on bringing her into the meeting, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Noel Kavanagh.
Present.
Councillor Sebastian Kindersley.
Good morning, Chairman.
Councillor Simon King.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Ian Manning.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Peter MacDonald.
Present, Chair.
Myself, Councillor Matt Maguire, present. Councillor Liza Machini.
Present.
Councillor Lucy Nasinga.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Lena Nieto, I think we've had apologies from. Councillor Kevin Reynolds.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Claire Richards.
Good morning, present, Chairman.
Councillor Terry Rogers.
Morning, Chairman.
Councillor Tom Sanderson.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Josh Schumann.
Good morning, Chairman.
Councillor Jocelyn Scott.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Mike Shellins.
Here.
Councillor Matthew Shooter.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Mandy Smith.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Amanda Taylor.
Good morning, Chair. Present.
Councillor Simone Taylor.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Steve Tierney.
Present.
Councillor Susan van der Ven.
Morning, Chair.
Councillor David Wells.
Present, Chair.
And welcome back, David.
Thank you.
Councillor Joan Whitehead.
Chair.
Councillor John Williams.
Present.
Councillor Graham Wilson.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Julie Wisson,
Present, Chair.
Councillor Tim Wotherspoon.
Present.
Right, I think
Chairman, I believe Councillor Jones has joined the meeting now, if you wish to check.
Yes,
Councillor Jones, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm present.
Thank you. Right, we move on to apologies. As I recall, we've got apologies from Councillors Cuffley and Nieto. Do we have other apologies I've missed, Michelle? Do you think so?
No, that's all, Chairman.
No apologies for lateness. Right. Now moves on to item 1 on the agenda, which is the minutes of the 9th of February. We've been asked to approve the minutes of the meeting on the 9th of February as a correct record. Can I ask any member who does not agree with this proposal to click the raise hand function on the right of your screen now? I see no hands raised, so I'm assuming that you're content, and I will sign the minutes in due course. Thank you. Now moving on to item 2, which is the Chairman's announcements. I have a number of announcements to make today. It is with deep regret that I report the recent death of Huntingdonshire District Councillor Jill Taverner. Jill was the District Council's representative on the County Council's Health Committee since January 2017. The Council's thoughts are with her, family, friends and colleagues at this very sad time. It is also with deep regret that I report the death of former County Councillor Colin Shaw, who represented the Abbey division on behalf of the Labour Party from 1996 to 2005. The Council's thoughts are with his family and friends at this very sad time. We will now have a minute's silence in memory of Jill and Colin. Thank you, Council. I now need to report the retirement of 2 officers, Chris Mallion and Dr. Liz Robin. Chris Mallion, Deputy Chief Executive and Chief Finance Officer, retires at the end of April. Chris was appointed to the role of Chief Finance Officer for Cambridgeshire in January 2013. Following the appointment of the shared Chief Executive in 2015, a Deputy Chief Executive role was created to support the new shared arrangements, and Chris took on these additional responsibilities in September 2016. Dr. Liz Robin, Director of Public Health, retires at the end of April, having delayed her retirement plans so she could lead public health through the challenging winter period. Liz became the first Joint Director of Public Health for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough in 2015. She was appointed Director of Public Health for Cambridgeshire in 2006. I'm sure members will wish to join me in wishing Chris and Liz a long and happy retirement. Following the launch last year of the Chairman's Commendation Scheme to celebrate the fantastic work of those who have gone above and beyond in supporting their local communities since lockdown began in March 2020, I was delighted to issue a further 11 certificates during February to individuals, businesses and community groups in recognition of their excellent work throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Full details of each member's nominations can be seen on the Council's website. So that we can continue to recognise those from our local communities who continue to provide so much support, The scheme will continue to run to the end of April 2020 of this year. May I take this opportunity to remind members to continue to send in their nominations. During the first week of every month, I will issue a certificate to those nominated. Council will wish to note that I will be marking a moment in time on Monday, the 22nd of March, when I bury a time capsule at the council's new headquarters in Alconbury. The time capsule will be filled with postcards from council staff, councillors and local school children describing life today during the pandemic and their hopes for Cambridgeshire in 25 years' time. It will also include front pages from newspapers in Cambridgeshire to allow people, to show people what is in the news on the day. I will be burying the time capsule in the staff seating area outside of the new headquarters with an engraved slab marking its position. The aim is that there will be a ceremony in 2046, 25 years after the time capsule has been buried. So may I take this opportunity to remind members to complete postcard so that it can be included in the time capsule, but also to remind you, you only have 1 week in which to do it. And finally, on behalf of the council, I would like to pay tribute to those councillors who will not be standing for re-election on the 6th of May. I want to personally thank Councillor Liz Every, who has supported me over the last 2 years, particularly during my first year when we held many citizenship ceremonies, and Liz stood in for me on many occasions during that period. Clearly, this last year has not been quite the same, but I'd like to thank her personally for her support during that time. That concludes my announcements for today. We now move on to item 3, which is declarations of interest. Under this item, members are asked to declare interest under the Code of Conduct in any item on the agenda for today's meeting if they are not registered on the Register of Interest. May I have declarations now? Please use the raised hand function. Councillor Schumann, I have your hand.
Thank you, Chairman. I wish to declare an interest on the motions, which is agenda item 8. Sorry, I haven't got it in front of me. And the motion regarding this land from Councillor MacDonald. As declared on my Register of Declaration of Interest, I'm a non-executive director for this land, which would result in me having a non-disposable pecuniary interest in this item. So I intend to make a short statement at the start when you introduce this item, but I will leave the room before the item is considered or debated or voted on. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Schumann. No other declarations of interest being shown? No. In that case, I'll move us on to item 4, which is public question time. This allows members of the public to ask questions at the council meeting, provided they have given advance notice. The council has received notice of 1 question, the content of which has been circulated electronically to all members and published on the council's website. Can I now ask Mrs. Andira Badhia to come forward and ask us questions? You have 2 minutes, Indira. Are you present?
Present, sorry. I was on
That's
mute.
all right.
So I have a question on chalk streams. Thank you everybody for your time. So there are 220 chalk streams in the UK, representing 75 to 80% of this habitat type globally. Most of these chalk streams are located in the south and southeast of England. Many are within Cambridgeshire, from Burwell Spring and Burwell Brook in East Cambridgeshire to Melbourne Rock in South Cambridgeshire and several brooks within Cambridge City itself. Chalk streams are not only beauty spots, but sources of clean water and habitats for many significant species, such as brown trout and water vole. 9 wells in South Cambridge supplied the city with clean running water for over 250 years via Hobson's conduit. The water from 9 wells is also authorised to be used on surrounding farmland due to us having some of the lowest levels of rainfall in the country. It is clear how important chalk streams are to both our environment and to our people. They are rare and unique areas of biodiversity in our local surroundings with a global importance. However, unsustainable water abstraction poses a threat to our chalk streams. The Environment Agency has moved to protect 63 chalk streams in the UK by limiting this harmful practice. I believe that it would be in keeping with the Council's climate change and environment strategy, in particular with reference to its focus on biodiversity, for the County Council to join efforts to recognise the importance of Cambridgeshire's chalk streams as natural habitats, including supporting restoration works and providing protection thereof. I would therefore like to ask if the Council will support the adoption of Cambridgeshire's chalk streams as county wildlife sites. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. Apologies for that. Thank you for your question, Ms. Padilla. Councillor Schumann, you have 2 minutes to respond to the question, please. Councillor Schumann, I can't hear you. I don't know if others can. Michelle, can you hear? Is it just me?
No, I can't hear, Chairman.
Councillor Schumann, you're muted at the moment. Councillor Schumann, we still cannot hear you. Our apologies, Indira, for this.
That's okay.
We seem to have a technical hitch. I'll give Councillor Schumann a couple of more minutes. He's
Okay.
smiling at us, but Councillor Schumann, are you with us now, Councillor Schumann?
Chairman.
Do you wish to respond to the question from?
I can hear you, Josh. You're coming through now. It's working.
Speak, Josh, we can hear you.
Could colleagues just hold on and rather than everybody coming in saying something to Josh and let me do it. Councillor Schumann, can you hear me? If so, could you acknowledge and then carry on speaking? Otherwise, we'll have to come back to this item later.
Chair, I think he's left the meeting and is attempting to rejoin.
Indira, I just wish to check then with our democratic services that Councillor Schumann, are you with us now?
I think I've just logged out and logged back in. Hopefully that's remedied the problem.
Okay, carry on. Thank you.
Thank you. You'd hope with our quick introductions in the morning it would all work smoothly, but that's not
That's the technology.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Chairman, and sorry, Ms. Vadera. Ms. Vadera, the County Council absolutely recognises the importance of chalk stream habitats for wildlife and the many services they provide in terms of amenity and water resources. In Cambridgeshire, all main rivers are already designated as county wildlife sites. This encompasses a number of chalk streams. Whether chalk streams are ordinary watercourses, they are, however, not currently designated as a CWS County Wildlife Site standard. The County Council are a member of the local County Wildlife Site Partnership, which identifies potential sites, provides information on management with a view to enhance and safeguard those local sites. The positive engagement and cooperation of landowners and their representative bodies can contribute significantly to the success of these partnerships. There is a set of agreed site selection criteria with measurable thresholds, and selection is based on whether a site meets the relevant criteria, formed by detailed ecological surveys and expertise prior to selection being agreed. There is currently no selection criteria for chalk streams. However, the County Wildlife Site Partnership is currently looking to developing a chalk stream criteria. The Council is in support of this principle of designation of chalk streams as county wildlife sites. Management and maintenance of county wildlife sites fall to the landowner. For chalk streams, this will be the riparian landowner, i.e. the landowner whose land borders or includes a section of that watercourse. It is for this reason that landowners should be involved in the designation process. County wildlife site designation is a material consideration in planning. However, it is important to note that designating chalk streams would not give a guaranteed protection, as this is a non-statutory designation. Designation is also sometimes complicated by a number of riparian owners that could be along the watercourse and whether they are able to carry out the appropriate management. In terms of future funding, there will be hopefully opportunities for landowners through the England Land Management Scheme, known as ELMS, which replaces the existing stewardship scheme. In terms of protection, the future requirement of the Environment Bill anticipated for autumn 21 for local authorities to identify and publish a local nature networks map should help. This will form part of the statutory duty of the Council and other partners to conserve and enhance the natural environment. As part of this, appropriate strategy for management will be needed. Linked to the Council, last paragraph, sorry, Chairman, I was going as quick as I can. Linked to the County Council's Climate Change Action Plan and commitments of doubling nature will hopefully allow the chalk streams and waterability, will link to the County Council's Climate Change Environment Strategy Action Plan and our commitment to doubling nature and our interest in chalk streams and water availability. The flood team has been supporting Water Resources East and Cambridgeshire Water with development of the Granted Catchment Resilience Programme. We also have previously physically supported river restoration led by the Wild Trout Trust on the River Shep chalk stream. Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I tried to get as much information as I could.
Thank you. Indira, you can ask a supplementary question. You have 1 minute in which to do so if you wish to.
Yeah, I don't have a supplementary question, but thank you for the information, Councillor Schumann. It was really comprehensive, and I'm pleased to hear that there's the specific criteria for chalk streams is being developed. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. If I may just respond to say my full response, I'm sure will be made available in the minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Indira, for coming and asking the question. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Colleagues, now moving on to item 5, which is petitions. This allows members of the public to present petitions in accordance with the agreed protocol. No petitions were received by the deadline. Item 6 on our agenda is the Senior Management Pay Data Pay Policy Statement for 2021 to 2022 and the pay gap reporting. Can I ask the Chairman of the Staff and Appeals Committee, Councillor Schumann, to move that the recommendations as set out in the report be adopted? Councillor Schumann.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to propose, and I believe Councillor Hudson's my seconder.
Councillor Hudson, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
Chairman, I think Councillor Hudson's computer has had to reboot, so
okay, well,
trying to rejoin.
While we're waiting, Councillor Schumann, do you wish to?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just do a brief introduction, but members and members of the public can access the full document through our agenda, and so will have seen the highlights. I just wish to introduce the item by saying, as I've said in the past, that our brilliant HR teams and ably supported by the senior management and certainly all the way through to the top, and our chief executive produced this brilliant report, which gives a fantastic insight and goes above and beyond what we're required to do by government in producing this data, but certainly indicates the direction of travel that this council is going in order to make sure that pay equality is across the piece. And sorry, our senior management pay has been reported in accordance with the rules. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor Schumann. Is Councillor Hudson with us now? In that case, we need a seconder. I'm content, since I'm a member of that committee, to second this motion at this stage, just for public record. And we will now move. We've been given no notice of amendments to it. There's the opportunity now for council to debate the proposal made by Councillor Schumann. I've seen 2 hands. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I too applaud the fact that the council is paying attention to this issue, both in terms of gender and in terms of ethnicity. I think on the ethnicity issue, 2 points. One, we need to ask why people do not wish to disclose their ethnicity. Of course, it is their personal choice and their entitlement, but we need to create a climate where people are able to do that without fear of it's being a negative, rather that they can see that it's a positive, so that we, the council, can address the issue of the ethnicity pay gap, and they therefore are able to be paid correctly. The second point on ethnicity is intersectionality, that there will be a crossover between gender and ethnicity. On the pay gap itself, we might applaud ourselves for addressing the glass ceiling, because so many of our people at the top levels are women, which is, of course, understood to be a good thing. However, we ought not to ignore the concrete canopy. That is that so many of the lower paid workers are women. This, of course, cannot be overcome solely by the council. What is needed is central government to address the issue through a work skills value inquiry, a WSVE, to address the fact that aged care workers, nurses, teachers, librarians, shop workers and childcare workers are all underpaid and will never have pay parity until the issue of the underpayment of traditional work of women is recognised. But I do thank the council for the report and for the fact that gender pay and the pay of those who are classed as under their ethnicity is being paid attention to. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm on page 23 of the report, which gives the gender proportion of pay by quartiles. And that does show, as it has shown now for a number of years, that women are underrepresented or men overrepresented in the higher paid, the top 2 quartiles. Now, we have put in place, I know, many strategies to try to improve the number of women in those higher quartiles, such as encouraging more women to apply for jobs that carry the higher rate of pay. What I'd like to know is whether these strategies have produced an improvement. So it would be nice to see this, this graph for perhaps the past 2 years as well as the present year. I don't expect an answer to this question right now, but I really would like to see whether there has been a significant change in the number of women in the top 2 quartiles as a result of these strategies which the council has employed. I'm sure Joss would perhaps not be able to answer that question off the top of his head, but it would be nice to have an answer to that question at some point, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Somebody came in there towards the end, but I think we got the gist of what you were saying. I heard. Thank you. I believe Councillor Hudson has now joined us. Can you hear me, Councillor Hudson?
Yes, Chair, I'm here. I do apologise. My computer decided to do what it wanted to do.
Yeah, we do understand those issues. In your absence, Councillor Hudson, I seconded the proposal made by Councillor Schumann, but you can take this opportunity if you wish to say something to this item.
Thanks very much, Chair. That's very kind of you. I accept that, and I totally endorse what's already been said by Councillor Schumann. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you. I apologise for coming in a way because I am on the committee, but I wanted to flag an issue that I had concern about because no progress had been made since the previous year's report, and that is on the issue of the impact on women of taking breaks for maternity or for caring responsibilities. And one of the things that some organisations have done is to track what happens to women when they return to the workplace and have found that it does have a significant influence on the pace of their future career. Last year, it was agreed that this work would be done. I think it may be underway, but I think after a year, we would have expected to see some results. So I'm flagging it really, as I flagged in committee, to remind the committee that this is an important issue to pursue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Whitehead, your hand is still raised. Take it that's legacy. Can you lower it?
No, it isn't, Chair. I would like some assurance from the Chair of the committee that the statistics I asked for would be provided. Thank you.
We haven't come to the end. Councillor Schumann will have the opportunity to respond to questions at the end of the debate. Thank you. Councillor Schumann, I'm not seeing any other hands. Do you wish to respond then, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I will respond and to start with answering Councillor Whitehead's question. This indeed was formed part of the discussion at the Staffing Appeals Committee about the producing data so that we could look at a trend, which I think is what you're sort of insinuating or suggesting, and that's absolutely the case. This has obviously been only reported in this structure for a short, just a few years. And so there's going to be anomalies. We appreciated that last year was an anomaly due to a change in our staffing structure, particularly with the Cambridgeshire Catering Services no longer being provided in-house. And so I didn't want to report in a line graph at the minute, because it would just not really give a clear indication of the trend or the data that we're hoping to achieve. But in future years, I think that absolutely will be the case, and I can assure you that will form part of the report. Councillor Jones, you made the same point at committee, and I agree and echo that you make a good challenge on one of our actions around ensuring that women are fairly treated when returning to work. It is probably worth, and I probably should have mentioned in my introduction, Chairman, that the actions this year have no doubt been challenged by the circumstance of having to work from home and the other COVID implications. However, it was noted at committee to commend the officers that even despite all of those challenges, a number of those actions are already underway and have already shown really positive results. So we absolutely recognise that we've come a long way. We've already made the right steps, but we've got a long way to go. And the committee will be, I'm sure, only too pleased to take up the monitoring of those actions. And I'd like to invite any members who are still here in the next administration to join us at our Staffing Appeals Committee, because I think it would be really positive to have as many inputs as possible. It's a piece of work that I'm sure we're all committed to seeing come to fruition. And just again, to echo my sincere thanks that this is being led from the top. Our Chief Executive is driving this forward, and I think that makes a real difference in ensuring that these actions absolutely get seen to completion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Schumann. That concludes the debate on this particular motion, and so we will now move to the vote. There seems to be a general consensus in support of the recommendation, so if anybody does disagree, please use the raised hand function now, otherwise I'll assume you're in support of the proposal. No, thank you for that. Thank you, Councillor Schumann. We now move us on to item 7, which is the appointment of the chairman or chairwoman of the Audit and Accounts Committee and of the Health and Wellbeing Board. I will move the recommendation, and I move the appointment of Councillor Terry Rogers as Chairman of the Audit and Accounts Committee and Councillor Steve Criswell as Chairman of the Health and Wellbeing Board. That be approved. Can I ask the Vice Chairman, Councillor Every, to second that?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. There's no opportunity to debate it. See no hands. So we'll now move to the vote on that. Again, there seems to be general consensus in the support of the recommendation. So if anybody disagrees, would you like to please use the raised hand function now? No. In that case, I see no objections. We'll take the recommendations as carried. Thank you. Item 8 is appointments to outside bodies. I move as chairman, the recommendation as set out in the report be approved. Can I ask the Vice Chairman, Councillor Every, to second?
Yes, very happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. The opportunity to debate that appointment. No hands are being shown. So again, we now move to the vote. And again, I would say there seems to be general consensus in support of the recommendation. If anyone disagrees, again, please use the raised hand function now. No, in that case, I'll consider the appointment carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 9, which is motions under Council's Procedure Rule 10. 5 motions have been submitted. The first motion has been submitted by Councillor Dupre. Can I ask Councillor Dupre to move and speak to her motion as set out on page 3 of the Council agenda? Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to propose this motion incorporating the amendment put forward by Councillor Joshua Schumann, and Councillor Anna Bradnam is my seconder. Do you wish me to speak now, or do you want to confirm the seconder?
Can I just clarify? You're saying you've, Councillor Dupre, you've accepted?
Yes.
Amendments as put by Councillor Schumann?
Yes.
And your seconder is Councillor Bradnam?
Correct.
You may now speak to it, and then Councillor Bradnam, I'll come back to you in a moment. Speak to your motion then, Councillor Dupre.
Thank you very much indeed. It's now nearly 18 months since the Fens Biosphere was awarded candidate status by UK Man and the Biosphere. So I'd like to start by congratulating Cambridgeshire Acre The coordinating.
Chair, would you excuse me? I'm sorry to interrupt, Councillor Dupre. I can barely hear you. I don't know whether it's a fault on my machine, but if you could speak a little louder, it would help me, please.
That may be the case, Councillor Dupre. I can just about hear you, but if you could move closer to your microphone, otherwise I'd suggest members might want to increase their speaker volume. Councillor Dupre, sorry to have you interrupted.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me more clearly now?
Yes, well, I can hear you.
Thank you. It's now nearly 18 months since the Fens biosphere was awarded candidate status by UK Man and the Biosphere. So I would like to start by congratulating Cambridgeshire Acre, the coordinating body for this project, for having reached this point. Biosphere status is awarded by UNESCO with the aim of improving the natural environment, using new ideas, science and technology to explore new ways of living every day in ways that solve global challenges. We believe, and I hope the Council will agree, that this kind of collaborative community effort is one that the Council should be actively involved in. The proposed Fens Biosphere Zone covers almost all of Cambridgeshire and includes the core fens and washes at Holme Fen, Woodwalton Fen, the Neen Washes, the Ouse Washes, Wickham Fen and Chippenham Fen. It encompasses large areas of farmland, a rich natural environment, historic scheduled monuments, and opportunities for tourism and outdoor recreation. Biosphere status offers the opportunity to work with residents and partners to make the most of what this unique area has to offer. The Fens could be the UK's 8th biosphere designation, the only lowland biosphere in the UK and the only one in the east of England. To achieve this aim requires the support of local authorities and evidence of wider public support. The Biosphere project has worked hard to engage, particularly with young people, but also with local communities and businesses, and in January held an online conference in which 164 people participated. These included not only interest groups and stakeholders, but also parish councillors, including from my own parish of Sutton, who reported back very positively to their parish council. It's time this council recognised, acknowledged and engaged in this project, and this motion today is a first step in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. Councillor Bradnam, I understand you're seconding the motion. Do you wish to say anything now, or do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
I'll reserve my right to speak to the end, Chairman.
Thank you. As we were given notice that there was an amendment to this motion, but Councillor Dupre has said that Councillor Schumann, who is proposing the amendment, is content. I just need to check with Councillor Schumann. Are you content to withdraw your amendment and then your aims are being incorporated in Councillor Dupre's motion?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm delighted that Councillor Dupre has been prepared to acknowledge the amendment as proposed, and so I'm have nothing to add to that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Therefore, Council has the opportunity to debate Councillor Dupre's motion as amended, or as agreed anyway. I've got Councillor Graham Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'm delighted that Councillor Schumann has accepted that his amendment is included. The Biosphere team have worked incredibly hard to demonstrate how the designation can add value and really benefit Cambridgeshire, especially in Fenland. And the briefing note describes how there are lots of opportunities for nature, for farming, for water resources, including protecting chalk streams, which we heard about earlier, for improving innovation and relating to climate change and the management of flood risk. The designations around the UK and around the rest of the world have shown the overwhelming benefits of these sort of designations. But I can understand that the Tories are reluctant to formally accept the proposed request at this stage, and therefore there is a bit of a compromise to be made here about asking for further information before we go for UNESCO biosphere designation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor MacDonald.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, I'd like to support this motion. I think we have a real opportunity to put the Fens on the map from an environmental and a climate change point of view. And I think our young residents in Cambridgeshire will be delighted to see us supporting this initiative. We do know from many of the climate models that the Fens run a real risk of ongoing climate change impact. And also, as somebody who works in agriculture, it is an important source of food production in that area. So I think it's appropriate, and to the credit of the council, that we're asking for a biosphere designation. So members, for the sake of the future of the Fens and the recognition of the concern of our residents, I do support this. Thank you.
Councillor MacDonald, thank you. Councillor Hoy.
Yeah, it was just two things. First of all, it's just to correct what Councillor MacDonald's saying. This motion is not accepting that we're going to definitely have a biosphere. We're getting more information. And the reason I think it's important that we get more information is because I personally cannot make any decision whether we want a biosphere or not. I don't know very much about it at all. I don't want to sort of make a decision about something I know nothing about. We're being told that it's really beneficial from Fenland, but I mean, Fenland members haven't had any kind of seminars on it, any briefings on it, any information at all. And so I don't know how we could possibly make any decisions about a massive project without this information. Now, of course, I don't have any issue with supporting the amendment that Councillor Schumann made, because what it's doing is asking for more information. Now, obviously, that's now been accepted by Councillor Dupre, which is great, because yes, let's get more information. Let's hear the facts so we can decide the facts before we make any formal decisions, because I would certainly like to know more.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Simply to say that, of course, Labor supports every measure that can be brought in that addresses climate change and the emergency that we're in this regard. We only have to look around the world to see the floods and the fires that are ravaging countries throughout the world to know that climate change is real and that this is a real emergency. Therefore, as Labor, we do support every measure to ensure that this serious issue is addressed, and we also support the fact that it is the Fens that are being concentrated on and that measures are potentially able to be taken in relation to climate change and the Fens and to improve the terrain there. So we, of course, support this motion. We've supported the motion in its original form, are somewhat sad that it's been amended, but understand that there are reasons for this amendment being accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Schumann.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to reiterate the comments from Councillor Hoy and be very clear with members that we are not, because of the agreement from Councillor Dupre, to support the amendment I suggested. We are not saying that this is, we are supporting the biosphere, but simply that we are asking for further information with the mindset to support. I don't think, you know, if it was simply a case that members of the administration or any members felt they couldn't support it or didn't want to support it, they would have voted against the amendment and not, voted against the motion and not even suggest amendment. The inclination is absolutely, if this is in the interest of the residents of Cambridgeshire, if this indicates benefit to the residents of Cambridgeshire, then we would absolutely want to support this and wanting to find out the information in order to support it and know that we are making the right choice. It is worth noting that the biosphere could also have some detrimental impacts, and that's why we're reserving judgment. There could be detrimental impacts to growth, and as one of the fastest growing counties in the country, we know that could have significant impacts on the residents and in a way which I'm sure no members would welcome. So this is a great opportunity for us to go away, speak with those that have already done an enormous amount of work on this and to get the information necessary. And once we have, we can then make an informed decision about whether we support or not. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Schumann. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chairman. I can't understand what responsible councillor for their own area would agree to something without enough information to be sure what they are agreeing to. It just seems utterly crazy, and I certainly would never do it. Now, I represent the Fens, as do many other councillors here, and we support doing things that help the environment and help create a sustainable future. But I think part of our suspicion, certainly my suspicion, was raised by the comments of Councillor Scott, who said Labour support any measure that combats climate change. Now, no question on what the costs might be to that measure, what other consequences might be, that she said they support any measure. And it is that sort of militancy that worries me, because who knows what crazy ideas might come down the pipeline. Now, look, I will absolutely support anything that helps protect the environment, makes life better for our constituents. But things like kind of entirely reflooding the Fens or something, these ideas you occasionally hear piped up, I will never support. And I know my residents wouldn't want me to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chairman. I am pleased that Councillors Dupre and Bradnam have agreed to accept the motion from the amendment from Councillor Josh Schumann, which I was going to second. And I do just want to say a few things that I was going to speak to that amendment. As a growth area, you know, we've clearly got housing and job targets to meet, and we all know what happens if we don't meet targets. And it's important for this council, in fact, for all councils in the geography of the Fens biosphere, to have the right policies and practices in place to balance the competing demands of development and all that that brings with the needs of the environment and wildlife and nature as a whole. There's no doubt in my mind that concern for the environment and nature do need a greater voice in order to balance the clamour of voices that are advocating human development. So I absolutely recognise and applaud the efforts of those involved to date in achieving candidate status. It's a significant piece of work for the proposed Fens biosphere, and I've been pleased to meet with some of them myself in the past. The council is committed to meeting its environmental promises and to increasing space for nature and improving biodiversity in our county. We've implemented a number of new and updated policies to support this, which are driving change, including the climate change and environment strategy, with considerable financial investment to back up the implementation of that. And the Combined Authorities Climate Change Commission launched its recommendations report yesterday. Very, very interesting set of recommendations. But of course, our district councils discharge their statutory duties to control and determine development in the county through adherence to national legislation and local planning policy. And further, the government has recently closed its white paper consultation, which set out proposed fundamental sweeping reform of the planning system in England. And the outcome of that is as yet completely unknown. And I also note, having done quite a bit of research on this subject, that 8 former biosphere sites in the UK have in fact withdrawn from the World Network of Biosphere Reserves. So I do think, you know, some effort in understanding the reasoning behind that is required. The implications of becoming a biosphere, part of a biosphere, are not yet clear for me. And the reality of development taking place in the biosphere buffer zones, for example, and the material effect of the promises and the aims and the objectives of the biosphere on planning decisions is not currently being articulated, and I don't think is well understood. And we therefore cannot go into this blind, and neither for me should we be going into this without having sought the views of residents, our parish, town, city councils, our businesses and other organisations in our communities throughout the county. It would be quite wrong to sign up to this without having consulted with our residents. So in summary, therefore, I do believe we need more information about the real world implications, benefits or otherwise, of our county becoming a biosphere, and we need time to ask for that information and to receive it, and we need to understand the detail of the national planning reforms. And if we were then to consider offering endorsement, we would need to consult our residents to get their views, and that's why I support the amended motion today to investigate further. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Some people are trying to muddy the waters, but biospheres do aim to improve the natural environment. They do aim to use new ideas, science, technology, as Councillor Dupre puts in her motion, to explore new ways of living. And I think we have got to be aware that we have got to find new ways of living. We have got to balance growth against the protection of the environment. And we have got to find a way of managing down climate change. And as in the past, I was involved in the climate change members group. I know that this council is working on those issues, but I don't think it's very helpful to respond to a reasonable comment from Councillor Scott that any measure that supports climate change the Labour group will support, by accusing her of militancy or accusing us all of militancy. Clearly what Councillor Scott was saying was any reasonable measure that does support climate change. And clearly there remains some doubt, which is why Labour was prepared to support the motion, which we then thought would be amended, and will support this motion. So I think we need to be careful about throwing bricks at each other, which is rather Neanderthal, and get on with the business of working together to manage both growth and conservation and to head off climate change. Thank you. And by the way, could I just add that the councillors, the Conservative councillors, are very keen that they should be consulted. And I understand that absolutely right. They represent communities across the fens. But I do think on this issue, wider public consultation might also be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. I think it goes without saying, as a council, we all agree that we need to look at what we can do to address the issue of climate change. However, to be able to work on that agenda, we need to be fully informed on the benefits, but also of any adverse consequences of the biosphere. And at the moment, I do not feel we have enough information to make a decision. I also feel that parish and town councils need to be included and given more information. And I would agree with Councillor Jones that a bigger public consultation so that we have more balanced views of all residents' views. Thank you.
So thank you, Councillor Hay. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. It's very, very simple, isn't it? Why on earth would you tie your hands up if you didn't know what you were getting or what the facts were? So I certainly wouldn't jump off a cliff if I didn't see what was at the other side. So I'm totally in support of Councillor Schumann and Councillor Tierney, who are saying how on earth should we do this and how should we commit the residents of Cambridgeshire before we're really clear about what the benefits are. So I will support the amendment, but I would certainly not want to commit the residents of Cambridgeshire to something until all the facts were clearly known. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Scott, I don't know if yours is a legacy thing, but you've already spoken on this debate, so I now intend to move to Councillor Richard.
No, I'm sorry, but I've had my hand up ever since Councillor Tierney spoke, and my understanding was...
Chairman, sorry, Councillor Scott, Councillor Scott, I am the chairman. Councillor Scott, I am the chairman. Councillor Scott, I am speaking. Could you please?
Yes. Well, you should act as the chairperson.
I read out at the beginning of the meeting the conditions under which you could raise a point of order or a point of personal explanation. You've done neither. You've already spoken it.
No, I'm sorry.
You were asked to interrupt. You have not interrupted. Your hand comes up as a series. If you're not familiar with it,
I've held my hand up.
I'm sorry, Councillor Scott.
I have held my hand up ever since Councillor Tierney spoke.
That does not matter. You're not following the procedure.
Well, I object to your conduct of this meeting, and it is outrageous that you conduct meetings in this manner. You are
Councillor Hunt, your hand is still up. Can you take your hand down, please? Councillor Hunt, can you take your legacy hand down, please? You've spoken, Councillor Hunt.
And you are an incompetent chairperson, incompetent.
Thank you, Councillor Scott, for your admiration of my ability to chair a meeting. And you need to check the rules and listen carefully to what is said at the beginning of the meeting. Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Chair. I think the comments and remarks by Councillor Scott are absolutely outrageous. We were all told quite clearly what we had to do if we had to raise anything at all during the debate, and Councillor Scott just did not do that. And for her remarks against you personally, I think is absolutely outrageous, and she should apologise. Going back to the motion, Chair, briefly, just to put it in simple terms, I'm a simple man, you know, the original motion was absolutely impossible to support, as Councillor Hunt and Councillor Schumann have already explained. So I support the motion as amended by Councillor Schumann, in that it simply asks for more information and more investigation of the biosphere to enable an informed decision to be made by local councillors and the residents they represent. That's what we're asking, that's what I support, and that's what this council should support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent.
Thank you. The first thing I'd like to say is I support Councillor Hudson's view. That labelling by Councillor Scott of your behaviour, Chairman, demands an apology, and I think you are entitled to one. I won't escalate the issue during the debate, but if there isn't one forthcoming, I will escalate it afterwards. Going back to the motion and as amendment, it is quite clear from what we've already heard, the improvement to this motion by the amendment put forward by Councillor Josh Schumann. I can only describe the original amendment in terms of lazy politics, because what we have is we have a Fens Biosphere vision document supported by a consultant's reports commissioned by ACRE regarding the benefits of a Fens Biosphere. And everybody supporting it has taken all their lead from all the information in that glossy brochure or sets of brochures. I should point out that the consultants were sponsored by Cambridgeshire ACRE, who are supporters of the Fens Biosphere. So what we've got is we've got really a sales document in front of it. Put simply, and trying to put it in terms that I see it, what we have is somebody walking onto a car lot to buy a car, and they've seen a car and it's got brilliant, lovely, shiny paint, and the sales manager is whispering in their ear, buy a fantastic car. And they've gone, yes, I'll have that then. And that was the original motion. But we're not buying the car for ourselves. We're buying that for our residents, or considering buying it for our residents. So it's up to us on their behalf to look under the hood, to check the logbook, to check the service history, to really understand if the car that we're buying, in this case, Fens Biosphere, is all that the glossy brochure paints it to be. Now, it's very clear that the Fens Biosphere tells us through their paraphernalia what it is that they can do. And I cannot really find much in there that they can do that we aren't already doing through our environmental and climate strategy, or what we can't do through our own efforts. So I'm not overly sold on the idea in the first place. But I can tell you what I don't see in those brochures, and it's what we can't do. And we heard mention of that earlier on. There might be planning restrictions, there might be job restrictions, there might be other restrictions that are simply devoid. And because the only supporting document to the vision statement is through consultants employed to sell it, in fact, it's got the title, The Social and Economic Value of a Biosphere, not examining the social and economic value or questioning it, but simply a statement how good it's going to be. So it's important that we look under the hood and see what we're going to get. We have seen many people speak in favour of the biosphere and jump straight in, but I live in the Fens, and I've got to be honest, there are problems with what I read, and it's the distortion of the life that I lead, living in the Fens. Little things like describing it as a wetland landscape. Look, I know some people may be disappointed, but I don't put on flippers to get to my car in the morning. I actually walk to it on an ordinary street, just like everybody else in a non-wetland landscape would look. I don't drive across ponds and puddles to get to from A to B. It is a nice area to live in. And there is a real downer in the document where it says a biosphere can change the perception of the Fens into being a good place to live, work and relax. Well, that means that their perception of the Fens is it isn't. And I've got to say, how dare they? How very dare they? I live in the Fens. The people I love and are friends with are in the Fens. My business is here, my life is here, and I'm very happy and very comfortable. The aspiration to growth that they put in inequality is the difference between high growth and low growth areas. That's simply not true. If you take a high growth area such as Cambridge City, you find congestion, you find air pollution, you find house prices that are simply unaffordable compared to the Fens. The quality of life is missing. So I want to look underneath the hood. I want to check the book. I don't want to just kick the tires and pretend I know something on the subject. I want to find out a hell of a lot more before I come to a decision. And when I get to that decision, it will be based on some facts and not a glossy sales brochure. So for me,
okay.
Right, now,
Okay.
Chairperson, I wish to have a point of personal explanation. I have a point of personal explanation.
Can you tell me, sorry, I presume that's
point of personal explanation, Chair. Please.
Councillor Scott, just before I bring you in on that, can I just ask you to be a little bit patient? It's not very easy to control a virtual meeting when people are just coming in. I have a list. But you just hear me out. Just hear me out for a moment. Do me the good kindness of doing that. Therefore, if you just suddenly come in and without giving me the chance to introduce you in and just talk across the top of me, it's confusion for both for members of the public and for the rest of the council. If you wish to come in on a personal explanation, I will bring you in now. So now you may speak on a personal, you're following the route, you've interrupted me, and that is quite correct, but you please try to avoid talking across me. Thank you.
Chairperson, I have a point of personal explanation, both in relation to council account and relation to you as chair. I had held my hand raised. Immediately, Councillor Tierney spoke. That was ignored throughout. This time, I interrupted as I was instructed to do. And you, Councillor Maguire, spoke over me and were most discreet. No, wait, please.
No, I'm not going to wait, Councillor Scott. You put your interrupting on the point of personal explanation in relation to the debate, not in relationship to my conduct. If you wish to take that up outside of this meeting, do so. Now, if you wish to raise a point of personal explanation on a matter that's been part of the debate, please do so. But you need to, if you've not, I don't know what your screen is like, but we've got 60, well, nearly 60 members attending. I cannot look around those screens and look down at the participants and see who's got their hand up. So people waving in the background have got their hand up is likely not even to be noticed by me. And that is why at the beginning of this meeting, I explained the process. Now, if you have a point of personal explanation with relation to what was said in the debate, make it now, otherwise I am going to move us on.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire.
You're welcome.
Councillor Tierney asserted that I stated any measure. I believe I stated, and in the course of what I said, I did use the word reasonable. If I did not use the word reasonable, then it was an oversight on my part. However, I believe I did use that word. In relation to Council Account, Council Account has said that I should withdraw my statement. What I will do is say this, that as I've said, I held my hand up and I acknowledged that I ought to have interrupted. But when I did interrupt, then I was spoken over. In regard to Council Account statement that I should withdraw, as I said, I will say this. It is apparent that others amongst you do not consider that Councillor Maguire does meet.
You're moving off. You're moving off again, Councillor Scott. No. You're moving off again. So I'm going to talk across you. You're moving off of the what is the debate. So now I'm moving on to Councillor Goldsack.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I want to go to the actual motion here and the amendment to the motion, if that's possible, please. What I would like to say that I live in a
Councillor Goldsack, I'm going to interrupt you. I've allowed people to say this. We have a motion which the mover of the motion, Councillor Dupre, accepted the changes that were going to be proposed. So we're not actually discussing the amendment, but it's the motion. So just for clarity for members who may not understand, we're not actually discussing an amendment. There was no amendment proposed and seconded for this. Just sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to make sure everybody understood what it is we're discussing. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you. Councillor Goldsack, are you sorry?
No, I'm muted, so they can't hear.
Councillor Goldsack, I've lost you. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Chairman, I apologise. My computer just went into auto reboot. I managed to stop it in time. Apologies for that. I want to talk to the motion as it is now.
Yeah.
I live in a village called Isleham, Isleham. That's Isleham, Island Village is where it comes from. The people in East Cambridgeshire refer to the area as the Isle of Ely. There are historical reasons for it being the Isle of Ely and Isleham being the village name. We are very, very aware. I think there's been an awful lot of hot air around this. We are broadly welcoming the introduction of a biosphere, but we want more information to understand what our homes, what our lives, what our working environments will mean as a result of it. That's what we're talking about. That's where the amendment to the motion came from, and that's what we're voting on now. That was the point I wanted to make. It affects everybody's home lives. I also recognise the point, I believe it was from Councillor Jones, that actually there is reason for wider consultation on this, because what we do out in Sutton and Maney and Isleham and these places has an effect on Wisbech, has an effect on March, has an effect on Huntingdon and Cambridge. So I do recognise that maybe there should be a need for wider engagement. But let's not forget what we're talking about here with this biosphere and all the good stuff that Councillor Count pointed out has an effect on every home life across our county.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. Councillor Nsinga, you had your hand up earlier on, but it seems to have disappeared. I assume you've changed your mind.
That's
You
correct,
don't-
Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bradnam, you reserved your right to speak. Do you wish to speak now?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I will. So I've worked in agriculture all my working life, and I've spent a lot of time on fenland fields one way and another in my professional capacity. And strangely, I know Isleham quite well as well. Waterbeach Division, which I represent, is categorised as Fen Edge, and I'm a member of the Waterbeach Level Internal Drainage Board and of the Conservators of the CAM. I'm supporting this motion even as amended because I'm mindful of how rare, precious and beautiful the Fenland is, whilst being a nationally important area for food production worth 3.1 billion to East Anglia. Every winter, we're reminded that this area used to be a much wetter area, and the drains and ditches need to be managed carefully to balance draining that land with the need to protect this special landscape and its unique wildlife. Ideally, these two needs run alongside each other for every landowner as one way of life, but they do need to be managed cooperatively. You know, the Fens face a difficult future. By the way, all of that drainage is, of course, why Councillor Count does get to his car with dry feet. The Fens face a difficult future. The need to deal with changes associated with climate change, such as sea level rise, peat loss, the scarcity of water in some circumstances, and population growth, and the increasing need to find sustainable solutions to feeding and housing us all, we mean that we must find a joint solution or joint solutions which deliver the best possible environmental outcomes coupled with a good quality of life. So the beauty of the biosphere reserves is that they do exactly that. They involve local communities and all interested stakeholders in planning and management. They integrate three main functions: the conservation of biodiversity and cultural diversity, the economic development that's socially, culturally and environmentally sustainable, and logistics support. This is the important bit, underpinning development through research, monitoring, education and training. So the Biosphere Initiative enables these various interests to be progressed with all of their interests balanced. Recognition of the Fen biosphere by this council will lend weight to this application for UNESCO biosphere designation. And I'm very glad that the leading group is supporting this amended motion, and I commend this motion to the council. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bradnam. Councillor Dupre, do you wish to sum up?
Yes, please, if I may. It's been very disappointing in some ways to listen to this debate, particularly when it descended into such outright hostility, particularly given the extent to which I had done and Councillor Bradnam had done our best to accommodate the issues that the ruling group had with this motion. But it's also been very depressing and quite concerning, in fact, to hear the level of lack of information about this project. Councillors Hoy and Tierney represent the Fens at 3 different levels and yet know nothing about a project that has been going on for 18 months or what it consists of. Councillor Hay, similarly, Councillor Bailey, Councillor Hunt, Councillor Goldsack, Councillor Schumann. The Fens Biosphere project is being promoted by the Cambridgeshire Acre, which lives in East Cambridgeshire. It's based in East Cambridgeshire. It operates out of East Cambridgeshire District Council run premises. And yet we're being told that in the 18 months since this proposal was put forward, indeed since it was accepted as a candidate, there has been no information that these councillors have sought out about
personal explanation, please, Chairman.
Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. I have been named by Councillor Dupre, and I think I've made it perfectly clear that I have met with the Fens Biosphere promoters in the past. What I said was, and I was very clear and I chose my words very carefully, is that they have yet to articulate the real world implications in terms of planning applications and development. And I was very clear about that. And if Councillor Dupre can articulate what happens when a planning application is to be determined in an area that is in a buffer zone, and how that butts up against the aims and objectives of the biosphere, then perhaps she can inform this council of that, because it has not yet been articulated and it is far from clear.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Dupre, you wish to carry on, please?
Yes, I wish to carry on, please. Yes. As I said, it is 18 months since this was accepted as a candidate for biosphere designation. Parish and town councils have already been actively involved in this. As I said in my opening speech, two of the parish councillors in my own parish attended the conference in January, came back and reported. There's been engagement with schools, a very active website talking about all of this. And in those 18 months, those in positions of leadership on the various councils in Cambridgeshire could have been being actively engaged with this and shaping the project, working with Cambridgeshire Acre to achieve the kind of consultation we might have wanted and getting those questions out and articulated and discussed in the public domain. That is, in many ways, the purpose of this motion, which we have put after 18 months nearly of silence at every other level. I want to come back in particular to Councillor Count's comments about this being lazy politics. I'll tell you what lazy politics is. Lazy politics is being aware that there is a significant application at UNESCO level in your area and not doing anything to bring it to the floor of this council for public debate and public discussion. That's what lazy politics is. It's doing nothing. It's not engaging. It's not opening up those debates about the issues and the practicalities of this. I'm very glad he's comfortable living in March, and he told me he was comfortable. He told us he was comfortable, but he and his residents won't be comfortable for too much longer if climate change does its worst. And I also think that there are many of his residents who aren't comfortable at the moment in the face of an area which has the worst inequalities, the worst issues to grapple with in terms of so many issues like health and educational outcomes and employment prospects and housing, so many major problems. I'm glad Councillor Count is comfortable. I want to help us ensure that the residents of Fenland and beyond are comfortable too.
Point of personal explanation, Chair.
Councillor Count.
Yes, thank you. I'm talking about the part in the speech earlier on where I referred to lazy politics and the reference just made to it. The lazy politics I referred to was jumping at the first opportunity to a glossy sales document and not looking behind for the facts. We've just heard as well from Councillor Anna Bailey the issues that I have been trying to get to the bottom of and cannot seem to find. I have made efforts behind the scenes to try to get to the bottom of. I've attended seminars, I have listened to this debate, and all I get from, as I would expect from any organisation, is the glossy sales patter. What I've not heard is actually the negative side or a balanced picture, and I've been unable to get that determined. So that is not lazy politics on my part. That is lazy politics on the part of the motion, by the fact that it just simply jumps in feet first, both feet, into the area of I believe everything that I've been told. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dupre, have you got much more to say? Because of the interruptions, I've lost track of how long you've got. So please bear with me. Don't speak for too long.
I'm sorry, Chairman, I haven't got much more to say, but I would have finished by now if we hadn't been hearing additional speeches by some members under the guise of points of personal explanation.
Always a difficulty.
In conclusion, I live on the Fen Edge. I love the Fens. I love the very special landscape it has, the very special history it has. I want to ensure that it is not destroyed by the kind of building that we're being presented with that is inappropriate for the area. I want to ensure that the agricultural life of this area continues and is enhanced, and that the area is made safe from the challenges of climate change, and that the inequalities in this area are addressed and are considered very much as part of this. Like Councillor Scott, I'm very sad that this motion of support has had to be watered down today, and that we're having to go at the speed of the slowest members here in this council today. But nonetheless, this is the start of a debate. I'm privileged to have been able to initiate this debate at the council today, just as my district council colleague, Councillor Mark Inskip, did at East Cambridgeshire, and to bring this exciting project to the council's attention. And I really hope that despite what we've heard today, this is going to be the start of a positive journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. Colleagues, I would have normally assumed that there was a general consensus in support of this amended motion, but I just need to check with you. If anybody disagrees that there's a consensus, could you please show your hand now? No, nobody's showing their hand. Therefore, I'm assuming that there are no objections to the motions, and it is carried. Thank you. Colleagues, that particular motion took much longer than I anticipated. So before I move on to the next motion, which is that from Councillor MacDonald, out of deference to yourselves and my age, I'd like us, if I may, take a 10-minute break. So looking at quick, oh, I've got my watch on. It's now 11:50. Can we come back at 12 o'clock? Michelle, could you do the necessary? Thank you, colleagues. Colleagues, it's now 12 o'clock. Hopefully everybody's back. Still a few cameras off. Give a couple more moments. Right. Shall we start the meeting? We now move to the second motion submitted by Councillor MacDonald. Can I ask Councillor MacDonald to move and speak to his motion as set out on page 4 of the council agenda? Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. Members, I think
Councillor MacDonald. Apologies, Councillor MacDonald. I believe I have Chairman to have to make a statement before Councillor MacDonald introduces it. I may have got that wrong. A point of order. Sorry.
Okay. Yes. Sorry. Excuse us, Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Schumann.
Sorry, is that correct, Fiona?
Yeah, sorry, I was just about to come in there. The chairman was speaking. It's fine for you to hear it being moved and seconded, and then you can say that.
Thank you.
I've lost your microphone is muted for that last bit, Fiona, so I missed it. So, but
sorry, Chairman, I was just saying that Councillor Schumann should leave. You can hear the motion being moved and seconded, and then he can make his statement, and then he needs to leave.
Thank you. I understand that, Councillor Schumann. Right, back over to you, Councillor MacDonald. Sorry for the interruption.
Yes, no problem, Chair. Members, I think we can all say that we wish this land to be a highly successful company, both commercially and from a development point of view. However, as it stands, we have little insight into its full business plan and relatively little knowledge about its forward trajectory on house building. Councillor Goldsack has kindly replied to us all and confirmed that 413 homes are to be built as part of the forward plan. However, at the moment, we do not know the type, the affordability, the sustainability, and especially the profitability of these homes. The projected borrowing for this land is reported as 122 million at its peak, and a payback to the council of all 55 million of loan of interest by 2029. The net asset value is reported as in excess of 10 million, which does seem like an awfully round figure. There does seem to be a theme within this land that it can dispose of sites to meet its borrowing commitments, yet any developer making those claims would lead people to question the business model somewhat. So I would urge this land to communicate a vision of profitability rather than always talking about land disposals. Planned developments like City Glades are high-end developments, and I'm sure they're excellent. I'm sure this achieves a good development return, but it does do little to address much needed housing needs. Not only do we want to see homes which local people can afford, and I don't just mean affordable in the strictest terms, we need to see exemplar homes in terms of sustainability. As I mentioned before, we have relatively little insight into this at present, although I'm sure that this land directors will be striving to achieve the highest possible sustainability standards. If this land is successful, and we all hope that, then what opportunity is there for early repayment of the planned loans in 2021 and 2026? And finally, in terms of governance, I'm sure Councillor Schumann will do an excellent job in terms of oversight. And so we do look forward to hearing from him at the next commercial and investment meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Right, just Councillor Schumann, before I invite the seconder to come in, you've got your hand up. Is that a legacy hand or do you wish to leave now? Councillor Schumann?
So it's a legacy hand, Chairman.
Oh, yeah, it's disappeared. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to look at several screens here. Councillor MacDonald, do you have a seconder for your motion?
Yes, Councillor Jenkins.
Councillor Jenkins. Councillor Jenkins, do you wish to speak now or are you reserving your right?
I'll reserve the right if I may, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Jenkins. Colleagues, we've not been given any notice of amendments to this motion, so therefore I'll move straight into the debate. I have Councillor Bradnam. Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Chairman. I note with interest.
Sorry, Councillor Bradnam. Sorry, Chairman. I believe I have to make my statement and then leave.
Okay, do it now, please. Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, Chairman. May I start by just saying that I welcome Councillor MacDonald's invitation to attend a future Commercial Investments Committee if I'm invited, and would be delighted to do so. As a non-executive director of this land, I wish to make a short statement on this item and then I will leave the room. This land continues to grow as a company and is very ably supported by an excellent board of directors who continue to hold the executive to account and ensure that the business delivers against its business plan. This land has undergone a significant overhaul of its business plan to ensure that the financial projections are conservative, realistic, achievable, but also ambitious. It is currently delivering financial returns in excess of that revised business plan. Although there are many misconceptions regarding this land, I want to confirm that this land has indeed built residential property already and sold a number of dwellings, often in excess of the predicted sale prices, and will continue to deliver many hundreds of much more needed housing over the next 5 years. This land has borrowed money from the council in order to buy land, predominantly from the council, and continues to pay back this loan and the significant interest in accordance with the agreed terms. The consequence of these payments brings in much needed funds to support the council, equaling many millions of pounds. The business plan projections indicate the loan will be repaid by 2029, and as previously stated, the company are not only delivering against it, but exceeding it. Land promotions have already been entered into, which form a significant income stream for in the business plan, and have already been successful in generating significant income. A fantastic example of how this land are not simply relying on easy and risk-averse opportunities, but instead looking to make the most of every opportunity. This land will deliver much needed housing, both market and affordable, on strategic sites. There are also plans for a medical centre and to support local residents and meet their increased need on one of their sites and deliver significant leisure facilities and environmental improvements on all of their strategic land. I'm delighted that the shareholder representative through the C&I committee and Councillor Goldsack continue to monitor and challenge the work of this land, and hope that he, like many others, recognise the huge success and future opportunities that this new and ambitious company offer to the council and the residents of Cambridgeshire. It may be just an optimism on my part, but I sincerely hope that the half-truths and untruths that are circulating about this land stop, and we as members allow and encourage this business to thrive. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Schumann. Are you now intending to leave?
I believe one of the Democratic Services officers will put me into a holding room now.
Can we please arrange that before we continue with the debate?
That's done, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bradnam, I think you were right in the middle of or you'd started anyway, so please start again, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to thank Councillor MacDonald for asking an important question, and I look forward with interest to the debate. But I just wanted to point out that the City Glades development, which is near Ditton Meadows, is far from excellent in appearance, and it is a particularly ugly development and very cramped, and I would just like to urge those involved in this land to consider more sympathetic designs for any future developments. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bradnam. I have Councillor Goldsack.
Thank you, Chairman. I am a little bit confused as to why this has been lodged as a motion and not a question, because I feel, quite frankly, we're wasting a little bit of council time and public time. Before today, as Councillor MacDonald said, I did share with him some answers and asked for it may be withdrawn to do that, but that wasn't accepted. I find it a little bit ironic that the start of this was said that they didn't have little insight, and both Councillor MacDonald and Councillor Jenkins sit on the C&I committee, because at the C&I committee, there's an open invitation for any member to be an observer at a board meeting of this land. That's not actually been taken up by an opposition member yet. I've attended and I've found myself to be most encouraged by the positive forecast and positive this land. I would like to point out that Councillor Shellens, I apologise, did attend last summer, but nobody has attended since then. Perhaps this could act as a reminder to the C&I members that if you want a little bit more insight, there is a great way to see it. I'd also like to ask, who's really asking these questions? A list of questions from a regular contact to Cambridgeshire County Council has been circulated by Lib Dem members. These largely multiple times repeated questions have been taken by the Liberal Democrat members direct to this land for some answers. Look, the protocol is that C&I Group acts as the shareholder for the council in this land, and there are rules and protocol to follow. Come on, everyone. There's an excellent relationship across the party on the C&I committee, and I'm one very proud chairman because of it. Let's keep up with that, please, by adhering to the rules and the protocol, please. Having said that, perhaps I should now thank Councillor MacDonald for giving me a chance to state out loud that this land is performing well to the latest agreed business plan and will be ahead on shareholder return forecast. To display a full 5-year P&L forecast in full council is not very commercially savvy, so we'll take that forward. However, I've already pulled together a full breakdown written in conjunction with this land's CEO, David Lewis. In addition, I've established a member briefing event at which the CEO of this land will present 2 members on current and forecast positions for the company. For the sake of this debate, I will now read some written answers. Question 1 was, during the next 5 years, this land intends to deliver 413 homes within Cambridgeshire. Can I remind people that this land is a development company, not a house builder, but that's by definition. Question 2, the asset value of existing land owned by this land limited. This land account for land assets as stock. The accounting carrying values are not reflective of the underlying asset value of the business. Where positive planning permissions are achieved, the enhanced value is not currently being recognised. This land estimate that the current market value of the business is not materially different to the value of the borrowed funding. Question 3, the future borrowing to build out the sites. There is currently 112.177 million on loan to this land. The April C&I committee set an operational boundary for lending at 150 million in principle. The October C&I committee agreed a detailed loan request which, if fully utilised, would take the actual borrowed amount to 122.2 million. Projections from this land currently suggest that the lending will peak at 122.2 over the next 5 years, subject to economic conditions. The economic overall returns. The most up-to-date forecast from this land is that they will repay all borrowings as well as interest amounts exceeding 55 million to 2029. In addition, there is a further net asset value within the company after the last repayments of exceeding £10 million. These figures reflect progress in recent months and are a modest improvement relative to the business plan received by the Commercial Investment Committee, April 2020. There are more precise figures available in the business plan and the confidential papers. Question 5 was according to the net borrowing requirement over the next 5 years. Well, I refer to the answer I've given in question 3, but would add that there are scheduled loan repayments in 2021 and 2026. We're hiding nothing here with this land. For those that would like to know more, perhaps we would like to see you at the members' briefing called next week. That's notwithstanding work commitments, diary clash, or possible lack of interest on some people. Having given full count to all these facts and having set up a members' seminar, I feel that we've done more to open up this land than requested in line with the motion laid. This land is something that the council will be proud of. For these reasons, and as this was a motion and not a question, I don't propose to move this any further and cannot support more displaying of this land facts and figures. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Well, I don't think it's very sensible to try and disguise what has been the stuttering progress of this land. And I've certainly commented on it over the past 4 years as a member of C&I committee. It was, I could remind, in the days before Councillor Golzak was the chair, called the Cambridgeshire Housing Company. And it is, whether as a master developer or a housing builder, supposed to be building houses. I think it's clear to see there was over-optimism initially about this land, and overcommitment by the County Council has dogged its path. Its first brochure was heavy in weight, but not in detail, and glossy. And I use the words that Councillor Count used, glossy sales patter, and that's what it felt like. A memorable phrase, thank you, Councillor Count. But at least it focused on building houses or developing houses in Cambridgeshire. There followed a catalogue of missed targets and attempts at resetting, and we can't disguise those. It failed to achieve timely planning permission, and it tried to blame that on the district councils. But actually, my own experience in Cambridge was that this land attempted a massive overdevelopment of a site, which initially was quite rightly rejected and then had to be revised and therefore took longer. It failed to deliver affordable housing, something that I've gone on about for the last 4 years, while the county was crying out for decent priced housing. I think I'm right in saying in Ditton Walk, for example, the lowest houses start at well over £600,000. It failed essentially to focus clearly from the start, and directors gave evasive answers about goals and targets. Any wholly owned subsidiary should surely have its strategic intent, at the least, set by its parent's organisation. But the parent doesn't seem to have followed the rules in this case. This land's drifted off mission, developing land promotion deals outside the county, selling off sites, and looking far afield for more quick wins in order to pay back the loans, or to pay the interest on the loans. It has made a revenue contribution to the county. Councillor Golzak is absolutely right about that. But it's huffed and puffed and made exaggerated claims. It's talked the talk, but not walked the walk. And I have to say, as a county councillor in Cambridge, I would compare it to the work of Cambridge City Council, which knew its limitations, partnered with an experienced house builder, took expert advice, set sensible targets, invested wisely, and has now built nearly 300 houses. That was against a planned target of 500 by 2022. And actually it will have started 837 houses by next March. And with another 1,000, they hope to come by 2032. The message for this land, I think, needs to be focus on the task in hand. And I hope that the council will be brave enough to reset this land's priorities and use it, in the Prime Minister's phrase, to build back better, especially for those most disadvantaged communities that have suffered so badly during the COVID epidemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I speak to this motion in relation to an issue that's of considerable concern to the residents of Arbury Division and also to the residents of West Chesterton Ward. In 2019, 5 flats were completed above the Milton Road Library. Since June 2019, those flats have remained empty. Last year, a resident of Arbury and West Chesterton raised this matter as a question in this council. And one might say that the response to the question was not satisfactory. So on behalf of my residents, the residents of Arbury and West Chesterton that also come into my division, I really echo their concerns in relation to this land and to the way that it is being run, and still those flats remain unoccupied. Completed June 19, unoccupied March 2021. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Nsinga.
Thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank the chair of C&I for his answers this morning. He asked what was the purpose of bringing this motion this morning, and part of the purpose of bringing it is to bring much of that information into the public domain. The public in Cambridgeshire are deeply concerned about recent evidence of failures by the Conservatives to deliver on their promises. The recent Audit and Accounts Committee, with its 31 recommendations in relation to the management of the county farms estate, followed so closely by the news that the mayor would not be receiving £45 million of government funding due to major doubts from government ministers about whether the value for money was being provided by the schemes he has supported. These issues mean that many in Cambridgeshire are not willing to give Conservative promises on financial competence on trust. This motion calls for a clear business plan to be made clear to all members of this council. Surely that is something that all councillors here should be supportive of. Openness and transparency in the management of public money is particularly important. It is absolutely crucial to make sure that the way in which taxpayers' money is being used is sensible and not overly risky. Property development is a risky business, and when risks are being taken with other people's money, that openness is especially crucial as a check on high-risk behaviour when the money involved is not that belonging to the people concerned. So it is that check on risky behaviour that we are very, very keen to see brought forward. I am grateful to the chair of C&I for drawing to our attention the fact that every member can attend this land meetings. I think it would be very helpful if that was made clear to people, if we knew when they were. I think that if we don't know when those meetings are, how can we possibly attend? So if he could make sure that every member...
Point of explanation, please, Chairman.
Councillor Goldsack.
Thank you. The point is to Councillor Nsinga, it is for members of the C&I committee, and they have been given the forward issue dates of when they were. It's not open to all members, it's members of C&I committee, 2 of which have brought today's motion and haven't attended.
Thank you for clarification. Councillor Nsinga, please continue.
So I think that is a helpful clarification, and I think part of the issue here is that more members need to know what is going on, and the public needs to know what is going on at this land. And that's why I think it is very helpful to have had the chairman's answers this morning, and why I hope members will support this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Nsinga. Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Chair. It was mentioned that we tried to blame the district councils over planning and etc. But it's way out there in the public domain, the absolute disaster as is planning coming out of South Cambridgeshire District Council. And it's because they were so disorganised that affected the ability of this land to deliver, because they took so long in their absolute disastrous disorganisation of their planning department on South Cambridgeshire District Council, the Liberal Democrat South Cambridgeshire District Council. You know, what's wrong with quick wins, Chair? Generates income, we should celebrate this. The business planners has been circulated, and you know, it's not our fault if the Liberal Democrats can't be bothered to read it. Councillor Nsinga said, property is a risky business. Well, absolutely, she's right on the button. So why do we think we are better at it than the professionals? If the council, this council, resets the plan for this land, as Councillor Jones mentioned, then it will breach the separation rules and the company will no longer be our arm's length. There's one way, I have to say, to ensure that a failure of a business, and that is to get involved with running a business we know little about. The county bank is a great example of when we let professionals do their job and we reap the returns. And it's no secret, Councillor Nsinga said, you know, if you told us we could attend, you know, I knew, I'm not a member of C&I committee chair, but I knew that all members of this C&I committee can attend board meetings to observe. And I remember a conversation with Councillor Shellings, long time ago, saying that he went there and he'd come back and, you know, at least he went, he took part, he observed. And I have to say, you know, perhaps the most important thing today is that the members on C&I have not taken this offer up.
Clarification. I think we were just told by Councillor Goldsack that not all members can attend.
That's correct. I did say that. I said members of the
that was
C&I
not
committee.
clear, Councillor Hudson, just for clarity. Councillor Nsinga is correct. It's members of CNI, as I understand. Thank you.
That is-
Carry on, Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Chair. That is correct, and I did say members of CNI can go to attend board meetings of this land to observe and bring back to CNI any issues they may feel they have. And the very, the very member who's brought this motion today is on CNI, and he hasn't attended. I mean, Councillor MacDonald was appointed to the CNI committee on the 20th of May 2020. So he's had plenty of opportunity to find out all these answers without politically bringing this motion. So perhaps Councillor MacDonald would do us all the courtesy to explain why he has not attended, so he could keep up to date with the work of this land. Because if he had, then I would think this motion would never have come to council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hudson. Before I move on to Councillor Count, can I just make a request of members of the council? It would be nice, given this is the last meeting of this council, if we could be maybe just a little bit less personal about, we've heard it several times about who's attended and who hasn't attended, but could we just tone it down a wee bit, please? Councillor Count.
Yes, fair comment, Chairman, not to mention individuals. So for clarity's sake, nobody except for Conservatives have attended these shareholder meetings since summer of last year. So I hope that's a helpful clarification rather than any name calling. It's a shame really, because I think we've got an election round the corner, and what has started off as really an attempt at a public expose of what may or may not be happening at this land, with the labelling that it's in our best interest to know, has actually degenerated slightly into a political battle. But I do think that if you look at the original motion, and there wasn't much wrong with the intent of that, it could have been handled by a written question. And that would have put the answers in the public domain in the same way as this. Those original questions have got a full and really explicit answer, a really detailed set of comprehensive responses from the chair of the CNI committee, who's here today. And not only that, but the offer of engagement has extended far past that for this land to say, actually, we wish to engage, and that was explained earlier on as well. We do wish to engage. We will answer your questions as long as they don't stray into the area of confidentiality and running a good business, which is what we hope they will do. Engage with us fully on those matters that should be transparent, but for the aims of the private company to really ensure that those areas that might interfere with their business stay private and are only revealed to a certain degree appropriately through the shareholder meetings and briefings. And I think that if you look at what we've heard so far, you've had one side of the debate, which has been a little bit of muckraking, a little bit of mudslinging, a little bit of political haranguing going on. And then you look at the other side of the debate, and it was facts, figures, explanations, promises of meetings, really hard-earned points that you could hang your hat on and knew what was happening, when it was happening, and how it was going to happen. So it's a really shame that people that say we hope this venture succeeds spend so much time actually trying to undermine it when it is tied to the funding outcomes of this council. We did hear mention of delays to planning and the defence by the in respect of Labour City Council was well heard, and I understand where they're coming from on an individual development basis. However, I have to say that what I heard about South Cambridgeshire Liberal Democrat run District Council, I absolutely have to endorse. We've seen it all over the press. We know what's going on. We know the problems that there are since the Liberal Democrats took control of South Cambs with their planning department. And it seems there's no end to the direction that that's going, and it hasn't got itself out of that particular hole yet. Be interesting to see how all the particular inquiries and points of failure turn out in the end, whilst we all wait for them to actually sort matters out. I've nothing really to add, except for if you look at the original motion, it asks for some very specific points, and I feel that they've been more than generously answered. And I'd like to move on from what has become a political debate, and I've added to that. I won't object to it, but I want to sit here and listen to this wonderful company be harangued by others with a bit of mudslinging, and not respectfully actually turn some of the tables back in that direction. So thank you for indulging me, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. I have 3 more speakers, Councillors Hunt, Tierney and Williams. Could I make a request of you? If you're not going to bring something new to this debate, could I ask you not to bother coming in at this stage? This is for a motion that was being suggested. It could have been submitted as a question. It does seem to be going on for a long, long time. So please, unless you're going to bring something new to the debate, remember I've still got the seconder and the proposer of the motion to come in, please consider lowering your hand. Right, so please, either something new or not at all. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very quick. I will keep my hand up. I just thought it was essential to clarify a comment made by Councillor Jones, where she referred to this land making quick wins in a way that was not a good thing to be doing. And I would say it's entirely right that a trading company generates profits, and it's not for some third party on the other side of the Atlantic, it's for the people of Cambridgeshire. So actually wins are something that should be happening. It's not a bad thing, and it is for the benefit of the people of Cambridgeshire, and therefore I totally agree with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate your desire to bring peace to the committee in the last meeting. However, I don't agree. I don't agree that we should be silenced, because some of us have sat here listening to these sly little pops all the way through the meeting, and I'm not prepared to just sit back and say nothing. Now, I mean no disrespect to anybody, but I would just like to make a couple of points. Earlier in this meeting, I have been obliquely referred to as slow and a Neanderthal. I'll take that. Neanderthals were twice as strong as Cro-Magnon Homo sapiens, and so I accept the compliment. But this particular Neanderthal still likes to point out hypocrisy when he hears it. And Councillor Dupre did say earlier on, she made a point about other councillors she felt hadn't learned enough about important issues, and yet here we have a motion brought by councillors who could easily have gone to a board meeting, found out what they needed to know, haven't bothered to do so, and have brought a motion instead. And the plain hypocrisy and all the sly little digs, I just felt the need to reply to. Thank you, and I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Councillor Williams.
Chairman, sorry.
Sorry, who's interrupted? Oh, Councillor Bradnam.
It's with me, Chairman, with your permission. I just wanted to point out that Councillor Linda Jones did try to interrupt earlier on, but I think she was unable to unmute. So I just wanted to raise that to your attention. And
there's nothing I can do about it at the moment, though. I'll come back to Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones, you were trying to. Sorry, can you just let me finish? I gather you were trying to interrupt us and were unable to because your thing was muted. Is it a point of order, point of personal explanation?
Personal information, because I was
no, sorry, Councillor Jones, I'm cutting across you. There is no such things as a point of personal information. You can have a point of personal explanation or a point of order. Which is it?
It's a point of personal explanation.
Thank you.
Or information, whatever you want to call it. But it's about the fact that I was misquoted, and I was upset about that.
Okay.
Because I usually try and make sure, in order to avoid being misquoted, that I actually write down what I'm going to say. And I did not say they were getting quick wins and nothing wrong with quick wins. What I said was looking far afield for quick wins. The point being, what they should have been focusing on as a Cambridgeshire company was building or developing houses in Cambridgeshire. And that's why I wanted the point to be made. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Right, well, I lost track there where I was. Councillor Williams.
Thank you. I think obvious, I think, over the last few years since the original company was formed, that it's underperformed. And I was very interested in the comment about South Cambs planning, because of course those particular problems occurred under the previous Conservative administration. And the issue with planning, and the reason it's taken so long to sort planning out, which indeed is a shared service with the city, is the mess that we inherited at South Cambs. And the South Cambs Planning Department just didn't have the capacity to deal with the volume of work that it was starting to see as we see Greater Cambridge become an important economic driver for the rest of the country. Hopefully we've now put that right and we're going to start seeing an improvement. But I think to blame us for the failings of this land is a bit rich, and really it's a workman blaming his tools, really. And the other thing I would like to point out is that given the number of houses developed by this land, the city has said it's built over 300. We in South Cambs we're in the process of building over 300 homes as well. I have to say, without the benefit of government subsidy, but it does highlight the poor performance of this land.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Howe, you got something new to bring in?
Chairman, are we now allowing South Cambs councillors to speak in County Council? If so, I would like to also speak as a South Cambs councillor.
Councillor Howe, sorry to interrupt you. We don't allow councillors from other authorities to speak per se. But if you wish to speak as a county councillor and you happen to be a Twin Atter, then that's entirely separately, but you're not. But so I don't know if that answers your question, but we don't allow South Cambs, Fenland, Huntingdonshire, or any other council to speak at this meeting per se.
Thank you, Chairman. Then I would ask then about John Williams's remarks be removed from the minutes as he was speaking, as he said many, many times, we as South Cambs, as a South Cambs councillor, I would ask for his remarks be removed.
Thank you, Councillor Howell. Right.
Chairman, that was a proposal that his remarks be removed.
I'm not sure. I will have to seek advice on that. I don't think that's practical, but I'll just hold one, colleagues. Switch your mics off while I consult with with Fiona McMillan. Fiona.
If Councillor Howell is talking about removing it from the minutes are a record of the meeting. They're not a verbatim record, so it's unlikely that those comments would be picked up in the minutes anyway.
Thank you. So did you wish to add anything else to that, Councillor Howell? Not going back to that particular point.
Thank you, Chairman. As a county councillor, but also a member of South Cambs District Council, I would just like to say that I completely refute what Councillor Williams has just said. It is obvious that under the administration of the Liberal Democrats, I have observed as a county councillor that the planning department of South Cambs has gone into massive decline. It is when sometimes people are waiting for over a year to have a reply from the planning department. And even if it was the South Cambs Conservatives, the previous administration, that was now 3 years ago. And maybe the Liberal Democratic group on the South Cambs District Council should take note of that and actually have got things in order, but it's still in rapid decline. As a county councillor, observing that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Jenkins, you reserved your right as seconder to speak. Do you wish to come in now?
Yes, if I may, Chair.
Before you do, can I just ask Councillors Howe and Williams to lower their hands, please? Thank you. Councillor Jenkins.
Yeah, quite some speeches, wouldn't you agree, Chair? And to some extent, you start to think that people have got away from this topic of the motion. And it's a good motion. And we've had two very, very useful speeches, one from Linda Jones, who told us a little bit about the history of this land and referred to the wonderful first document, which is a little doorstop, if you want a doorstop. And I will give him great credit. We had a useful speech from Mark Goldsack, who gave us all the data we want. And to his credit, yes, he runs the C&I committee in a very collegiate way, and it's a pleasure to attend. But I do need to correct him a little bit. When the opportunity to attend the board meetings was agreed and set up, first of all, they're only once a quarter, so there aren't exactly a lot of them. And secondly, it was one person per meeting. And so it was difficult to schedule everybody in. And I stood back because, of course, I'm leaving. So I thought it'd be better if some others would attend with continuity. I could have attended, but I've made do with the telephone number of the chief executive when I wanted to know something anyway. We've got this debate, this motion really because this land is in the public domain and the usual suspects are circling and saying it's in trouble. Well, I don't think it is in trouble because I've seen enough of the data to be comfortable with that. And I would agree with Mark Goldsack about that. It's not a problem, but if you look at its books, it's carrying a lot of debt and it appears that it's paying interest out of increases in that debt. And that's never a good situation to be in. And the fact is that this land has actually bought itself more land than it can possibly process in the short term. If it was genuinely a company operating on its own in the free market, it wouldn't have loaded itself up with such an inventory of land. We've got to remind ourselves that this land is owned 100% by Cambridgeshire County Council. So all the land we get to develop is given to this land to develop. It doesn't have to compete with anybody else in the open market out there. So logically, its directors and its chief executive should have said, whoa, we don't want that land at the moment. We don't need it. We don't want to build up this pile of debt. But they didn't, because the fact is that Cambridgeshire County Council, as 100% shareholder, said, no, you take it now. The consequence of that is that they raise their debt and they borrow the money from us, and we get that money from the Public Works Loan Board for a couple of % per year, and then we lend it to this land, and then they pay interest at 5% a year. Nice money if you can get it. Quite deliberately, nobody in this room is shaking their heads at that because we all knew about it. That's why we're in the situation we've got today. And the income that's come from this land has helped fix the deficit in our budget. It's the magic money tree. It's not revenue from development, it's revenue from usury. But we are where we are. Chair, this land was set up with a purpose. I was there at the beginning and I supported that purpose and I support it now. Linda's explained how it's occasionally gone off track. It needs to be dragged back on track and kept to focus, stick to its knitting. I support that purpose. But because we decided to do something else with it, financial jiggery pokery, we've got the public information in the state that it is today, and that's why the usual suspects circle and start to ask questions about this land. A little bit more openness and transparency would be beneficial. Secrecy never helps. This is a good motion and it's a necessary one because it's bringing some clarity. It's concise and to the point, and I'm happy to second it. And Chair, may I say that, of course, this is the last council meeting I shall be attending. This is the last speech I shall have made. My first one is May 2007, long time ago. So it's good to have had the opportunity to speak today and to second this motion. It's a good one. Please support it.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. Before I invite Councillor MacDonald to come in, can I just ask if Councillor Wells, could you just switch your mic off? Oh, it may have gone off now. It was on earlier on. Yeah, it's gone off now. Okay, Councillor MacDonald, do you wish to sum up, please?
Thank you, Chair. Very, very briefly, I think a number of good points have been made. Just want to make one general point, which is that I've tried to make the motion as specific and non-political as I could, hence the brevity of it. So the motion as it reads simply calls for a forward view on the development of the portfolio for this land going forward. And I'm very grateful to Mark Goldsack that he's made arrangements for this land to make a full presentation on the outlook. And I meant what I said in the motion, which is everybody here wishes this land well for the sake of their company and for the sake of the County Council. I'm sorry, Councillor Goldsack felt that bringing this motion is a waste of the council's time, as he said. I feel it's my responsibility when we're loaning 122 million to any legal entity, whether it be a housing company or anything else, with a peak loan of 150 million to raise questions in a public forum about that. So I would encourage you, please, to support the motion, and I thank you for the inputs that have been given.
Chairman. Point of personal explanation, please. You're on mute, Chair. Chairman, you're on mute.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. Sorry, what did you just advise me?
A point of explanation. What I said was it should have come as a question, not a motion. That's what I said.
Thank you.
Very different.
Councillor MacDonald, you've concluded, have you now?
I've concluded. Thank you, Chair.
Right. I think it's pretty obvious there isn't a consensus on this one. So therefore, I'm now going to ask the Democratic Services Manager, Mrs. Rowe, to conduct the vote on this motion electronically. Mrs. Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies, my internet is unstable, so if you can't hear me, I apologise. Members in favour of the motion, please click the buttons marked for and submit. Members against the motion, please click the buttons marked against and submit. Members wishing to abstain, please click the buttons marked abstain and submit. Can the host please confirm that everyone has voted?
I believe I'm waiting for one more. I've got 55 out of 56 having, oh, that's everyone now. So I will now close the vote. The results of the vote are as follows: 25 votes in favour, 31 against and 1 abstention. Therefore, the motion is lost.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Mrs. Rowe. We now move to the third motion submitted by Councillor Machini. Can I ask Councillor Machini to move and speak to her motion as set out on page 4 of the council agenda? Mrs. Machini, Councillor Machini.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Unfortunately, I must say that I will not be moving my motion today, and I wish to withdraw it. And if I can have just 1 minute, I will explain why.
I think, yes, if it's an explanation as to why you're withdrawing it, but as long as it's not a speech on whatever.
It will be short, and it will literally only explain why. I think people know that this is a subject that is very dear to my heart, as demonstrated by the fact that I did present a similar motion back in December 2018. However, I am afraid that the looming threat of the administration's proposed amendment, which features a commitment for the County Council to unleash the power of its own media to misrepresent me and my views, is simply too much for me to be able to risk. As Councillor Count knows, I have...
Councillor Machini,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. Thank you for that. We do understand the difficulty you face, but you have withdrawn your motion. So on that basis, unfortunately, you won't be able to speak to the motion. And I need to just check, since we had been advised that there were going to be amendments. Obviously, the amendments will not now take place. So thank you. And I do understand your position. But thank you for that.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Right, I'll catch it up with my pages. We now move on to the fourth motion, which was submitted by Councillor Scott. Can I ask Councillor Scott to move and speak to her motion as set out on pages 5 and 6 of the council agenda? Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. This motion is directed to all of us here who believe that all workers should be paid a wage that meets everyone's day needs. Everyday needs, so simple as to cover the weekly shopping, the meals for the children who must be fed, the growing appetites of teenagers, the high costs of baby food, the basic costs that assure personal cleanliness and hygiene, and a clean and safe household. And the sudden demand arising out of the blue. The boiler gone wrong, a toothache and urgent visit to the dentist, a pipe burst, the need to invest in Wi-Fi because COVID-19 comes along, schools shut down, and children must have online access to be taught at home. This motion acknowledges that Cambridgeshire County Council is not one of the more than 7,000 United Kingdom enterprises that pay staff a real living wage. It is moved so as to move you, every one of you, of us, to recognise that Cambridgeshire County Council should join, will join, large and small employers who do pay staff a real living wage. There will be Cambridgeshire County Council workers who are visitors to food banks. Some of our employees are food insecure. That it is our obligation to acknowledge. And this, of course, goes beyond those workers who are directly employed by the council, directly employed by us, every one of us. It goes to those workers who are employed by enterprises contracted to carry out the work of the council where their employers do not honour the real living wage. We are complicit in their food insecurity, the anxiety that goes with being constantly worried about having sufficient to cover the weekly grocery shopping, the urgent visit to the dentist, the dire need to fix the electrical fault, the worry about heating in the cold winter months. Living Wage Foundation's 2021 Life on Low Pay report found just over 1 million people, 27% of full-time workers, earning below the real living wage, regularly skipping meals, and almost half of those with children. The disgrace for us, the Cambridgeshire County Council, is that some of our workers are amongst those 1 million, amongst the 27% of full-time workers. Do we care? Polling found that that among full-time workers earning below the real living wage, over 2/3 saw their pay fall over the past year as a result of the pandemic. 29% fell behind with household bills. 27% skipped meals. A fifth said they'd been unable to heat their home. A fifth said they'd fallen behind with their rent or mortgage. The polling of full-time but below living wage, real living wage workers found damaging effects on health and family life. Nearly 46% said that their pay received for their work negatively affects their level of anxiety. Over 1/3 said the pay received negatively affects their relationships with close friends and family. 31% of parents said that their pay received negatively affects their relationships with their children. 24% of women workers, 17% of men earn below the real living wage. This council presents with fanfare its report on the gender pay gap, yet closing the gender pay gap has been met to a large degree by dismissing workers who earn the lowest wages, most of them women, and contracting out services to enterprises who fail to adopt the real living wage, so that those workers, so often women, continue at the gender pay gap, but simply not on the council's records. Adopting the real living wage could assist in closing the gender pay gap, which the council trumpets is its aim. Why then this resistance to the real living wage? I put this motion to this council for the council to follow its conscience. Fair pay for work is solely recognised as paid workers is a real living wage. We must adopt this motion if we are to treat all our workers fairly and if we are to recognise that a real living wage based on the consumer price index, what it costs for everyday living, is the wage to which our workers, all of them, are entitled. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Scott, do you have a seconder for your motion?
I do.
And it is who?
Councillor Richards.
Thank you. Councillor Richards, do you wish to speak now, or can you confirm you're seconded it? And then do you wish to speak now, or do you reserve your right? Councillor Richards,
And I'm reserving the right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're confirming you seconded it. Thank you. Colleagues, I have Councillor Williams. I've been given, by the way, I've been given no notice of amendment to this, so I will proceed straight into debate. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. I will have to abstain on this vote, and I explain why. As you know, as well as being a county councillor, I'm also the lead cabinet member for finance and staffing at South Cambridgeshire District Council. At South Cambs, we recognise the real living wage and promote it. And indeed, we have introduced a £10 minimum wage for council employees. But South Cambs is not accredited to the Real Living Wage Foundation. We are a small district council, and the cost of being accredited to the foundation in terms of both money and officer time is too great in these circumstances. Plus, we are encouraging local tradespeople to supply the council, which the current terms of accreditation would make very difficult. South Cambs has this position under continuous review. So although I support the real living wage and the circumstances behind it, in the circumstances being a lead member for staffing and finance, the right thing for me to do is abstain at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Schumann.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be very brief and say that I simply can't support this motion for two reasons. Firstly, if members cast their eye to the briefing note, an excellent document that we're provided, which gives explanation of all the motions we're considering today, an impartial briefing note provided by officers, and draw their attention to one short paragraph which reads, if the council were to become a real living wage employer, we would have to sign up to any future pay increases that are yet unknown. That is simply irresponsible. It's not the kind of fiscal management that this council adopts, and it's the kind of leap of faith that we've heard about already today, which could land this council and the taxpayers of Cambridgeshire into positions that we just don't know. The second reason is that, again, recognised in the briefing note, these negotiations of pay for our staff are national negotiations. And I wish to stay part of those national negotiations because the clout and security it provides for our employees when they know they're part of a bigger organisation that can negotiate their pay is, far outweighs any sort of virtual signalling that you can get from trying to say that we just want to pay more and we're going to go it alone. It is worth noting also that the pay increases for our lowest spinal column, again in the briefing note, has clearly indicated a significant increase in those very people that Councillor Scott has identified in this motion, from £7.07 per hour in 2015 to a £9.25 position we find ourselves in now. A significant increase that, again, will be heavily weighted towards, and it says in the briefing note, towards these lower scales going forward. Therefore, this motion is simply unsupportable, in my opinion, and we should reject this motion and stick to the national negotiations and the certainty that the current situation provides us. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Schumann. Councillor Batchelor.
Thank you, Chairman. In a similar vein to Councillor John Williams, I'll also have to abstain for a similar reason. At South Cambridgeshire District Council, I'm the chair of the Employment and Staffing Committee, and only yesterday we approved to make a recommendation to the full council there, the pay policy, and within that, the National Living Wage Foundation was not agreed to be signed up to. So for that reason, I will have to abstain as well, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Batchelor. Councillor Tierney.
About that, Chairman, my position on the screen keeps jumping around and I keep trying to track down how to unmute. Yes, thank you. In regards to the desire to increase people's wages to what they're calling a real living wage, I'm always in support of anything that helps people live a better life and have a better time. But I think we approach these things too simplistically sometimes, and we forget that if a council is going to pay more to staff, then there are only a limited number of places that rise can come from. It can come from reserves, a finite resource that will eventually run out. It can come from service cuts. It can come from tax rises, and it can come from borrowing. Now, the only other option some people bring up is efficiencies. I think we've pretty much done efficiencies to death, but it's always the one that we try and bring up to pretend that there's a magic money tree when there isn't. And the simple truth is that when you make a virtue signalling motion, you ignore all the consequences that you will later cause. And I just think that's very short-sighted. And I would just urge everyone who believes, like I do, that people deserve to live well and to have a fair wage that they can actually live on, to think about supporting tax cuts next time. It's much harder to do because it means you have to rein in some of the many other things that you want to virtue signal about. But wouldn't it be nicer if instead of demanding we pay more to people, we instead took less from people? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to speak in favour of this motion. I think Councillor Scott made an excellent case. But the one point I would like to make is that in order to do this, the cost of the council as part of its budget is very small indeed. The Labour Party put forward in its budget for 2020 the figure that would have allowed us to pay people to raise everybody and put them on the living wage. I have been trying to find this amount of money because it was actually very small. And I think we ought to bear that in mind. It will not cost us very much at all to do this, and yet it will make an enormous difference to the people who are the lowest paid members of our community. And I really feel very strongly that the County Council should be taking responsibility to do this. As we have heard, some of the district councils are already doing it. I do not think it is a good thing that the County Council is behind in this measure. And I think I would strongly support this motion, and I would urge everybody else to support it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Nsinga.
Just very briefly, I believe that the figure that Councillor Whitehead is looking for is £7,343. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong.
I hope they won't come in and do that.
Thank you, Councillor Nsinga. That is absolutely right. Thank you.
I think that I absolutely agree with her. I understand why two of my colleagues will be abstaining on this for reasons to do with their particular council. I think that this is something that Cambridgeshire could afford to do on that basis, and therefore I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't intending to speak on this, but in response to Councillor Tierney, I felt I just had to say something. The cost of this proposal is, as has been said, £7,343, which is not a lot of money in the scheme of the amounts of money that this authority is responsible for and spends. I feel this would have been a better motion without the commitment to accreditation, which brings with it a number of issues which I would rather not have seen in there. And I do believe we could have started by putting our own house in order very simply with that £7,343 rather than get embroiled in the issues around accreditation. As South Cambridgeshire has done, they have paid their staff the real living wage and as a first step, and that's absolutely right. A large number of local authorities have committed to do this already. The University of Cambridge has to, Anglia Ruskin University has to, but large numbers of councils have gone down this path. And we would not be striking out on our own or cutting our staff adrift. We would be joining a growing force of public sector bodies that are committed to this. But the thing I particularly wanted to say was that Councillor Tierney suggested that the answer to all this was tax cuts. Of course, tax cuts affect and benefit least those on the lowest incomes. Tax cuts always benefit those on higher incomes, and therefore to suggest that the answer is simply to slash taxes and hope that something will somehow trickle down is absolutely fundamentally wrong. And I just wanted to correct that fundamental misrepresentation of basic economics. Thank you.
Voice of point of personal explanation, please, Chairman.
Councillor Tierney, you're coming in on a point of personal explanation.
Yes, please. Obviously, Councillor Dupre needs to read up a bit more economics. No, I wasn't suggesting in any way that that solves all the problems. I was simply pointing out that tax cuts is one way that you can put money back in people's pockets. And in fact, there are lots of taxes that affect everybody, and you can campaign to cut those too. So she's completely.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney.
Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you. I wanted to make a wider comment, partly because of the message that was given, and I think it was by Councillor Schumann, that we shouldn't be paying the real living wage because we tie ourselves to the future. Now, that struck a chord with me, because are we really arguing that in the future we should be driving down wages? I don't think we are. And I wanted to make a wider public health point, because Councillor Scutt was making those wider points within the context of the framework of her speech. Very recently, the Cabinet Office went to Peterborough and looked at the Peterborough Fenland workforce, because it asked the question, why are there such high COVID rates there? And the answer, of course, is partly because of the types of industries, food processing, agricultural work, but it's also because a lot of those people are on low wages, 0 hours contracts, casual work, which means they can't afford to take time off, they can't afford to self-isolate, they're living in poor housing, crowded housing. In the context of all these messages about building back better, surely Cambridgeshire City Council should be setting an example of what it needs to tackle here, which is to deal with structural inequality. And part of that must be about paying a real living wage so people can afford to live decently and live in decent houses, and that employers are pushed towards paying a decent wage. This is one of the issues alongside, I think, the climate change, where I think the council is going to have to think about the balance, the swings and roundabouts here, the balance between driving for growth, driving for efficiency, and actually living with
You finished. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Chair. I can't agree with this motion, of course. You know, I mean, what sensible forward-thinking organisation, as we are, signs up to future financial demands from some faceless committee sitting somewhere we don't know? I mean, it's nonsense. And Councillor Schumann hit the nail exactly on the head. It's absolutely essential we stay with the national negotiation system, which also includes the unions. And I'm sure our staff would prefer that, and I've no doubt the unions would prefer that. So I cannot support this motion in any way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hudson. Councillor Cagg.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of facts and figures to do with, this motion is a Labour Party motion. I'm surprised that they'd be willing to undermine their local unions in this way, but I'm going to just draw out some facts and figures of the Labour Party's performance. So the Labour Party going to the elections in 2015 pledged in order to secure the votes of many people to raise the minimum wage to £8 at 2020. Now, as we all know, we've had a Conservative government since then, and what they did was they achieved £8.21 by 2019, a year earlier. In fact, it was £8.72 by 2020. Now, it's not just the Conservative government that has outperformed Labour in this respect, but also the union negotiations that this motion is seeking to undermine. Cambridgeshire County Council does do that, and is signed up to the national pay body to take that into account. And in 2015, the wage that we were paying was £7.07. That's now £9.25 is our minimum spinal point. The current minimum wage is £8.91, and we pay £9.25. So on each and every occasion, we are actually more generous than the bare minimum and outperforming Labour in increasing actual real difference on the ground. So I'm sorry, but this latest gesture to try pre-election to secure some votes because it makes a difference to some people, but actually undermines the vast majority of our staff by taking us out of pay negotiations, is not really the way I want to go forward. In the end, I would love us to see much higher wages down the spinal pay column and a more equal society eventually. But we are in a period and we have to work towards getting there. And one of the ways to get there is through increase in productivity. And you've probably heard me say this many, many times. It's through efficiency and productivity that we'll be able to afford to pay everybody a much better wage. And we heard earlier on about the equality pay gap and the efforts and the achievements they've made there. So yeah, I'm proud of Cambridgeshire County Council. I'm proud of what we do. There's always room for more, but there's room for more across everywhere. And I never, ever ask anybody to use the words only, which has been repeated so often when it's come to public money. The money of the public purse never gets to use.
Chair, could I ask a point of information, please?
No, there is no such thing as a point of information. It's a point of personal explanation or a point of order.
I think it might be a point of order then. I would
Before you
a point of order. Thank you.
Before you continue, Joan, can you just tell me which point of order you're raising? You know the Constitution, you know the rules. What's the point?
It's on a point of accuracy, Chair.
No, there's no such thing. Sorry, Joan. I'm going to interrupt you again. There's no such thing on a point of accuracy. Councillor,
so councillors allowed to tell lies, are they, Chair?
Thank you, Chairman.
I hope not.
If it turns out that, or if Councillor Whitehead believes that I may have said anything that's inaccurate, I've merely used the latest internet search engines to get my facts and figures to try and get them out. So if there is anything inaccurate, I will, of course, take that up with Councillor Whitehead outside of the meeting and then correct publicly if necessary if I've made a false statement. But everything I've said, I believe, comes from established and reputable facts and figures. Thank you.
Councillor Hoy.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't going to speak on this, but I'm going to, because I don't know, I was kind of chuckling at what Councillor Dupre was saying, really, because the kind of comment that tax cuts only help the rich, it's such a wonderful soundbite, isn't it? It's kind of like these evil rich Tories, they just care about their rich banker mates. I mean, I don't personally know any bankers at all, so like, I've always chuckled when I hear those comments. I mean, obviously she didn't say those exact words, but I think that intimation is often said about Conservatives, which I do find frustrating. I also wanted to comment about the fact that it was just plain and simply wrong about the point about tax cuts. They do help everyone, even the poorest in our society. Look at the raise in the personal tax allowance that happens most years. That means the poorest people can earn more before they pay less tax, so they keep more of their own money in their pocket. Take cuts to VAT. Everybody buys things, whether you're a billionaire or you're on benefits. Everyone has to go to the supermarket and buy things. So those tax cuts help us all. So, you know, when we're told that we don't understand economics, I think that's quite offensive, really. And there are many schools of economics and different thoughts and different beliefs, as I'm sure Councillor Dupre is very aware. So I suggest that she reads these books on economics, reads them and understands them. And I mean, I was able to read them. And I maybe have a tiny, small Neanderthal fen brain, but I did understand them myself. So I'm sure with your highly capable brain, you'll be able to understand these differences.
Councillor Hoy, you don't have to go into this personal type stuff. It does not do you any favours. It belittles the debate. No other speakers. Councillor Richards, you reserve the right to speak. Do you wish to come in now?
Yes, thank you. So I'd like to start by reassuring that I'm supporting this motion. Labour's bringing this motion because we believe in it. Pure and simple, we believe in it. I believe in it for a larger number of reasons. I believe in it because I know it works. So Councillor Scott indicated that with the real living wage, it doesn't just cover the employers in the county council, and we've also heard today, and we also know from the Labour budget, that actually comparatively it would be a small amount to commit to paying employers at the county council the real living wage. But what it also does is that it allows employers to work closely with those to whom they contract, to support them, to work with them to pay the real living wage. It gives the county council an opportunity to be a leader, to lead by example, to promote the real living wage to employers, organisations across the county. Look, if 60 other councils can do so, why can't Cambridgeshire County Council? Cambridge City Council, they do it. 53 organisations, including large employers, ARU, for example, which was mentioned earlier, now pay the real living wage. Now, I'm going to refer to the link in Councillor Scott's motion and the link on the Real Living Wage website toolkit. Employers who pay the real living wage say that they feel that 93% of employers who've paid the real living wage say that they've benefited. 67% says that's improved retention and recruitment. Now we need this, we know this is much needed across Cambridgeshire. We know that we have issues with retention and recruitment in care. 75% of workers feel more motivated. Now, it would, to do this, to give this message to workers who are living in care, who've risked their lives. I'm sorry if I'm virtually signaling, but they have risked their lives. Gives, I think, an incredibly important message. We should be paying them the real living wage. They should be certain that they will always be paid the real living wage. The other thing is actually, we're talking about virtue signalling. I'm not entirely sure what was meant by virtue signalling, but I'd like to point out that it helps the investment in the local economy. In 2018, research showed that there was 1.1 billion boost to major cities as a result of paying the real living wage. And post-COVID-19 budget, this seems to be important. You see, we've been working on a poverty strategy. I think it's now we've moved that to the social mobility and diversity strategy. The intent was true, honestly. There was lots of people working really hard, lots of officers giving up a lot of time. But actually, it's, a lot of what was mooted there, for example, education, and improving educational opportunities, yeah, very important. But actually, this will make a real sustainable change. Education will make a real sustainable change, but that's not going to happen immediately. And if we work with this, we can make a real sustainable change. We can also invest in the local economy. You see, I am very concerned. I'm very concerned that this council will not take the action that other councils take. So, for example, when I brought a motion to exempt care leavers, other councils had found ways to overcome what this county council saw as barriers that couldn't be overcome. So, I am very concerned that we don't take action when actually it shows that it would improve investment in our local communities, that it will improve the life for our residents, and it concerns me greatly. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, I wanted to add something about the trade unions, actually.
Sorry, Councillor Richards.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Richards. We're talking across each other because I thought you'd finished. What are you continuing?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one point about the trade unions, actually. I don't see why it precludes negotiations with the trade unions. I do not see that at all. And it's my understanding the trade unions support the real living wage. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scott, you have the opportunity to sum up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's suggested by one of our number that a sensible, forward-looking council would not sign up to this motion. Yet some 7,000 employers are signed up, many of them top-level companies on the stock exchange. They would be surprised to learn, I am sure, that somehow they are adopting an approach that is, as it appears to another of our number at least, lacking in business acumen. A third argument appears to be that paying the real living wage loses jobs for those in the lower rungs who are not properly paid, so they should continue not being properly paid. This argument is the very same furphy raised against equal pay for work of equal value, and pay equity. It is the very same argument against pregnancy leave, maternity leave, and other worker benefits that are paid in a civilised society. The notion that adopting these measures will lose women jobs. It is an argument familiar to all trades unions over the decades that unions have existed to fight for industrial rights, for the rights of workers, a principal one being the right to a wage that pays for everyday essentials needed for workers to live. To adopt an approach that finds business acumen lying in paying workers below a real living wage, a wage that means they can buy everyday necessities, is astonishing. There are so few workers now left in the council workforce that the payment of the real living wage for the next budget year was able to be included in the Labor alternative budget. Unfortunately and sadly, that amendment, that budget was not adopted by the council at that time. The real living wage rates for 2021 were announced on Monday, the 9th of November 2020. all employees of real living wage employers should receive the new rate by the 9th of May 2021. Just imagine if this motion were adopted by this council, we would all be sitting here after the May election, those of us remaining and successful in election, as a real living wage employer, paying a decent wage to our workers at the lowest level of the wage scale. Those not remaining could be satisfied that in their final session with the County Council, they approved a motion resulting in assuring that a wage based on the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, is honoured by this council. That wage is based on a basket of everyday goods that are essentials for the very survival of workers. Sensible, forward-looking councils, sensible, forward-looking employers, sensible, forward-looking council sign up, and sensible, forward-looking council members would adopt and approve this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. There's clearly no consensus on this one, so I'm going to now ask Democratic Services Manager to conduct the vote electronically. Mrs. Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. Members in favour of the motion, please click the buttons marked for and submit. Members against the motion, please click the buttons marked against and submit. Members wishing to abstain, please click the buttons marked abstain and submit. Can the host please confirm that everyone has voted?
There's one more to vote, I believe. 56 out of 57 have voted.
Chairman, would you like us to close the vote?
Yes, please.
Thank you. That vote is now closed, and the result is as follows. 20 votes in favour, 32 against, and 4 abstentions. Therefore, the motion is lost.
Thank you. Colleagues, we've been going now for nearly 3 hours with one break in between. There is only one further motion on the agenda, plus questions of the Combined Authority of the Scrutiny Committee. And my natural inclination is to call a break now. However, whether we have just a short break, I certainly need a comfort break, or we stop to have some sort of lunch break, maybe half an hour. I'm quite open to suggestions, but rather than everybody come in, could I just ask the leaders, so that's Councillor Nasinga, Councillor Rashidi, Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Count, if they would just give me an indication, do you want a short break and come back and conclude? Says I have no way of knowing how long the next motion's going to take, or do you wish to have a longer break? Recognising we've got officers sitting here as well. Can I start with Councillor Singer?
My instinct is to go for a shorter break, Chair. I'm not expecting that we will need this motion to take more than half an hour.
I'm holding you that. So a short break of maybe 10 minutes. Councillor Sanderson.
I would concur. I think a shorter break of 10 minutes would be fine.
Councillor Rashidi.
That's fine with me. No
Councillor Kate. Last but not least.
Yes, a lovely piece of unanimity today, Chair.
You agree with it? Okay, colleagues. Just checking on the time now. According to my watch, it's 13:22. So we make it. Well, let's have 12 minutes, but let's come back at 13:35. Thank you. Colleagues, it's now 13:35. If you're back, could you switch your cameras on? Okay, we now move to the fifth motion submitted by Councillor Nsinga. Can I ask Councillor Nsinga to move and speak to her motion as set out on page 6 of the council agenda? Councillor Nsinga.
Thank you, Chair. As this is the final full council of this term for us councillors, I thought it would be very good to end with thanks to those who are not restanding for election in May. This is the end of my third term on this council. Politics is always lively and sometimes combative, but after 20 years on this council and other councils and involved in politics, the past 4 years have been the most divisive and turbulent in all my time. National and international politics have had an impact on our debates in this chamber, but the way in which this Conservative administration have chosen to wield the power granted to them by an outright majority has also been more aggressive than in my previous experience. On this and other councils. Under those circumstances, I felt that it was particularly important to recognise and draw attention to the incredible work done by councillors of all parties in standing up for their communities, and to allow a space for councillors to thank one another for the many good friendships which have grown up both over the past 4 years and for some over a much longer period. There are many councillors standing down at this election with very, very many years of service to Cambridgeshire. I will focus most of my speech on the wonderful Liberal Democrat members who are stepping down, as we have some, but we have some real giants of this council who are retiring this year. David Jenkins was the leader of the Liberal Democrat group when I was first elected to this council. He was a wise voice then and has remained an impressive presence on this council ever since. His time as chair of the Health Committee during a time of enormous change for the health sector was particularly crucial, and he was a hugely important stabilising influence at that time. He also has continued to work amazingly on this council throughout his time, as was shown again today by his extremely wise intervention on this land just earlier on today. Councillor Harrison was also a powerful member of that Liberal Democrat group when I first joined 12 years ago. Nicola is an amazing speaker, and her passion and energy in fighting for her residents in Cambridge and for the future of this city over very many years has been incredible. I have huge admiration for Nicola, and I will miss her presence in our groups in so many ways. The difference she has made to Cambridge City through the vision she has shown over many years is enormous. I will miss you so much, Nicola. Barbara joined our group a little later and has been a wonderful colleague. Barbara's role in fighting consistently for her residents in Trumpington, but not only in Trumpington, but across the whole county, especially on libraries and archives, has been really important. And her work in defending Cambridgeshire Library and from the plans for the Cora changes was crucial. Look, Barbara has also been a fantastic, calm influence in our group, often ensuring that tea and cake were on hand at critical moments. Another giant of the council not restanding this time is Councillor Downs, who will be a huge loss to the council. Councillor Downs' knowledge of school finance in particular and education matters more generally has been of incredible benefit to the council over many years. But beyond that, his wisdom and headmasterly presence have been of value on a huge range of topics. I also need to mention Councillor Shellens, who is also standing down, but I'm not going to spend very long talking about him because I know somebody else is going to. But Mike has been an amazing colleague and an amazing person to work with, also very wise. There are many other people who are standing down, and I don't know them all. I don't know exactly who is going to and who isn't, but one person who I do know is stepping down is the chair. And I do want to thank you, Mac, for your years of service to the council, which I know have been of very, very long standing. I think that we haven't always agreed politically, but I have to say that I have enormous respect for you as somebody who has given such an incredible service to Cambridgeshire and shown again today that you are a very impressive chair. Councillors of all communities working, all parties and none, work incredibly hard for their communities, and their work is frequently underappreciated. This pandemic year has shown just how crucial local government is when communities need support, and councillors are a vital part of that community support. So I thank you all for the work that you have done in representing your communities over the past 4 years, and for many of you for much longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Visinga. Just for clarity, I'm not standing down from the council.
Oh!
I don't know where you got that from. I've still got a lot, I still believe I've got a lot of life left in me, but I will obviously be standing down. But I thank you for your kind thoughts anyway. I understand Councillor Count is seconding your motion. Councillor Count, is that correct?
Yes, I'm happy to second and reserve my right to speak, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands up, in which case, Councillor Count, I would suggest you, oh, hang on, make sure, oh no, good, sorry, I was at the bottom of my participant screen rather than at the top. Oh, yeah, it's quite a lot. Councillor Banning.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say a few words specifically about Councillor Shellens. I've learned a lot from many members of my group, but particularly from Councillor Shellens. He's imparted me a great deal of wisdom about how to work with others, particularly when they aren't of the same political views as me. And I wanted to try and do it in the manner of a Councillor Shellens speech. So I want to get a bit of philosophy in, get a bit of detail in, and it wouldn't be me if I didn't do a pop culture reference as well. So I was trying to think about how I could talk about Councillor Shellens' qualities, but get all those things in. And I thought of when anyone's seen the recent Disney Plus series, WandaVision. I should say that other streaming networks are available, but in the climax of WandaVision, 2 superpowered androids battle and then discuss the philosophic concept of the ship of Theseus. Sorry if I'm spoiling this for anyone. The ship of Theseus, for anyone who doesn't know, is the idea there's a ship in a museum somewhere, and gradually over time it rots, and then bits of it have to be replaced until the entire ship has been replaced. And at that point, you ask the question: is it still the ship of Theseus or not? So, with those ideas, the superpowered androids and the ship of Theseus, I wanted to talk about I want to make 3 things about Councillor Shellens. First of all, the idea of constancy and the idea of principle, and of course, the idea of shooting laser beams out of your head. Now, Chair, if I start with the idea of constancy, for those who don't know, Councillor Shellens has been a member of this council and the chair of the Audits Committee through a vast period, through the no rule control period from 2013 to 2017, into when the Conservative group took a majority, and still recognised that he was the key person to be chair of Audit and Accounts. And I think we all recognise that that is a committee that requires a particular level of attention to detail and commitment. And the idea of having someone a constant through that period was vital, I believe, to how that committee performs. We might not all in this meeting agree with his recent reasons for resigning, but I hope we all recognise that he did it on a point of personal principle. And that is something that Councillor Shellens, I think, is really known for, the idea of putting personal principle above all else. And that principle on his time on the Audit Accounts Committee is a legacy of trust in that committee and the work of that committee. So over time, Chair, that committee, just like the ship of Theseus, will change its membership until the point when it is no longer the committee that Councillor Shellens chaired. But I believe he'll have left a lasting legacy, and I have complete faith that the new chair will carry that legacy forward. But if not, those laser beams are always available. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Manning. Councillor Hunt. Councillor Hunt, you're muted.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I half agree with Councillor Nexinger, but I would say that actually it's been such an honour and a privilege to serve on this council and to represent Hadnam, but actually I think it's down, I really need to turn her comments in reverse and say thank yous, because I think I've been taking more than I've been given. I've had so much from this council. For example, I cannot say that when I first got elected in 2005, I met this Scotsman who gave me a lot of time and a lot of advice, and he's been constant in that advice and has never fallen short of being telling me what he thinks. And so, Mac, you have been a stalwart, and I very much appreciated being always your apprentice. I thank also the officers. I don't think I've been the easiest of councillors, and I don't think I've adapted quite as fast as some people, to the IT requirements as they've developed. And I must say that all the officers I've ever met have been extremely tolerant and have worked very hard under a lot of different circumstances. I thank my Conservative colleagues who have supported me and have always been understanding and reasonable and helpful. And my stay at Cambridgeshire County Council has also inspired, and I won't, although I'm leaving, I won't be totally leaving politics, because my contact with Cambridgeshire County Council has inspired 2 or 3 of my close friends to be involved in local politics and at quite a high level. And I even inspired my son to come into politics, where, of course, he is now the MP for Ipswich. So my daily briefings keep me on the straight and narrow all the time. And I've been very much involved in the selection of what I hope, and I'm not sure Lucy will necessarily hope, but I hope will be replacing me in my division. And of course, he will honour the wishes of the council in reclassifying the A1123 to a B. And finally, I would like to apologise to some of the people who have been on the other side of the chamber, and in this case, in the air. Sometimes I may have been a bit pushy. And there is one person who's already been highlighted as an exceptional councillor, and that's Councillor Harrison. Although I haven't agreed with her on many things, I've always recognised her total commitment and also her intellect and her intelligence. And it'll be sad not to see her on the other side of the table. So thank you very much, and it's been my pleasure. And I just wish you luck in Alconbury and say cheerio. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt-Relder. Right, who have I got next? Councillor Machini.
Thank you very much, Chair. Today has been only very slightly more fractious than I was expecting, and therefore I am actually very grateful to Lucy for bringing this motion and allowing us to finish on a nice positive note. There is indeed a great deal to be thankful for, and I would like to thank very much the officers that have supported the Labour group during the last 4 years. We have already acknowledged the Chief Financial Officer and the Director of Public Health who are retiring. We would like to thank them for their work, and all of the other officers. I can't start a list because that would be really bad. I'd get in trouble. But so many people that have supported us, all of the Democratic Services officers. It's been amazing to work with you all. I personally hope to be back after May, so keep your fingers crossed for me. And I do know that members of my group, whether or not they are going to restand, they know how grateful I am to them for the work that they have done in the past 4 years. It's been hard, it's been difficult, there's been a lot of getting used to things, but we have run some fantastic campaigns and we have learned so much in the process. And I would like to highlight, our campaigns on children's centres, our campaign to get accountability for our care homes, our campaign for free school meals for children this year, and today our campaign for the real living wage accreditation. All of these things should really show everyone, regardless of their political affiliation, just how much difference local politicians can make if they believe in what they do. And I think we have a wonderful collection of people in this virtual room who really do believe that this is a really important principle. So I would really like to thank everyone involved. And well, I hope to look forward to something even better next year. And I am already grateful in advance to the people that will still be there alongside me. And I look forward to getting to know those who will be new. So thank you very much for everything.
Thank you, Councillor Machini. Councillor Shooter.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't really planning to say anything, but Bill's inspired me as usual. So I'm not standing again, and you know, I'd just like to thank one or two people. Well, everybody really, but I'll mention one or two by name, because 16 years as a councillor, I never really expected to be elected in the first place. As some of you will probably know, I'm not particularly driven politically. In fact, when I first stood, I had to rush around to actually sign up to be a member of the Conservative Party to stand, because I'd never been affiliated to any political party in my life, and I never thought I would be. But having said that, I've really enjoyed 16 years. I've enjoyed sparring with many of you in the past. I've enjoyed the advice of people like Mac, who's been here much longer than me. Ian, also much longer than me. And there aren't too many others that have, but I particularly remember in my early days sparring with David Jenkins. He'll probably remember my references to the roads in Cumbria, which he picked me up on a number of occasions. Little did I know that some years later, the leader would decide to make me chairman of highways. So actually have an opportunity to try and do something about it. And I really enjoyed that challenge. I hope I made a difference. I'd like to particularly thank Bill for being my vice chair on that committee, and all the members. I think we had a collegiate group. I think we enjoyed ourselves. We had our differences of opinion, but that's the nature of politics. Ian Manning came out with some extraordinary things just now. I always found him very sensible, actually, on the committee, and we had a lot to agree about, but I didn't understand a word what he was just talking about. Maybe my children would, but I really no idea what he was saying, but I'm sure it was interesting to some. You know, just finally, I'd like to say I wish everybody success for the future. I really wish everybody on the behalf of Cambridgeshire success. It's so important, our county. I love this county, although I come from Oxford originally. Some of you probably don't know that. Having come from the other place, I've taken Cambridgeshire absolutely to my heart, and it's where I would always want to live if possible. The final thing to say is that the last 4 years hasn't been that easy for me politically anyway, as some of you will know, because I'm an avowed European. Not that I'm any fan of the European institutions, I have to make that absolutely clear, but I grew up in Portugal. I've spent a lot of time in Europe. I have many friends out there, and so it's been a sad and difficult time, although I have to confess that the way the Commission is carrying on at the moment makes me think maybe it wasn't such a bad move anyway. But anyway, thanks to everybody. I've really enjoyed serving the people of Cambridgeshire, and I've really enjoyed working with all of you. And I wish you all luck and success and good health in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Shooter. Councillor Downs.
Thank you very much. I won't labour you with 20 years of anecdotes, except to say that the time when the County Council worked most efficiently was, paradoxically, when there was no overall control. The years 2013 to 2017 brought the best out of all of us, because we had to compromise, we had to listen to each other, and the County Council functioned well. So I'm quite a fan of no overall control. But what I really wanted to say today was to thank Joan Whitehead. I've been on education on CYP with Joan for a number of years, and I think we were benefited enormously from her expertise, her experience and her wisdom, and I'd like to place on record my appreciation of Joan's work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Downs. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you very much, Chair. I too can reciprocate very strongly there that Councillor Downs has been an invaluable member of the Children and Young People's Committee and an invaluable member of the Council. As Lucy said, his knowledge of education is wide-ranging, and his practical experience of being a head of a large school was absolutely invaluable, and I have enjoyed immensely working with him. In general, I'm sure most people know that I'm standing down because I now live in York. I would have stood down last May rather than this May, but unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, the elections were cancelled. And so I was asked by the Labour group to continue as a member, which I've done by Zoom and email ever since. While I was a councillor, I had two, if you like, positions of responsibility. One was as a leader of the Labour group for 3 years, and the other was chair of the Children and Young People's Committee. As leader of the Labour group, and indeed as a member of the Labour group, one has to say that that has not always been easy. We have some very forthright discussions, but one can say about it, it has never been dull. And that, I think, is a great compliment. But as chair of the Children and Young People's Committee, I really feel that the committee system, I feel, has worked well. It started, of course, after the 2013 election. And as chair, I was very impressed by the way that committee put aside all party political squabbling, all party political ideas, and worked unstintingly and unceasingly for the good of the children of Cambridgeshire. And I think it was a very positive experience. I enjoyed it immensely. And I was really pleased that all members of that committee worked so hard to do their best for the people of Cambridge, children of Cambridgeshire. And that has continued in the time since then, since we stopped being a hung council and became a Conservative control council. I do think that committee works well, though there have been one or two things where I wouldn't quite agree with it. But again, most of the time, I think it does work hard and unstintingly for the good of the children of Cambridgeshire. And I hope sincerely that the committee system continues, because it is a way that everybody participates. And I think, as Councillor Downs said, everybody cooperates, compromises, and does the best they can for the people of Cambridgeshire. So my parting remark is long live the committee system. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. I have no other speakers. Councillor Count, you reserved your right as seconder. You wish to come in now?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm happy to second this amendment, and I want to be clear that this motion is about thanks to those councillors who are standing down, and I won't be using this opportunity to throw in any comments about some of the less salubrious things that have been said, but really to stay on a happy note and an inclusive note. It's particularly to pay tribute to those who won't be here after the next election, and whilst we know that some are standing down, I also know that it is likely that some that aren't standing down may not get returned. And perhaps after the elections, we'll get a chance to properly reflect on the full range of characters councillors who have contributed so much to the running of this council at that point in time. And at the moment, this list is only half complete with those who have willingly stood down. I've got to say that, and I mean this for all parties, and as leader, I'm sure you would expect it of me, that it's been a privilege to work alongside you. I look forward to seeing some of you again. Obviously, I prefer them to be more of one colour than another, but I do look forward to hopefully being back myself again to join you and to see what the new term brings. But in terms of those that are voluntarily stepping down today, I think that what we've heard and the message that I'd like for us to embrace and show to the public is that despite some of the moments that they see at full council, particularly pre-election, generally speaking, it got mentioned by another councillor today, we work well together behind the scenes. That is the effort. We are here to serve the public. And I don't think the public, who only see this side of us, ever really see the amount of hours of dedication that you have all put in order to be a councillor and serve your communities. And I mean that uncompromisingly to you all, that your best efforts have always been there with those people who put you into a position of power, their best intentions at heart. There's a long way between now and May the 6th. So I must urge all of you, including those standing down, not to take your foot off the pedal. We still have a job to do. We're still in the depths of a pandemic, or a rampant worldwide pandemic. So please don't go on your holidays just yet, even if you was allowed to. We've got to get there. And I want to say thank you as well to the officers that always support us, but particularly to Chris Mallion and Liz Robin, who Chairman's announcements were leaving. A lot of names got mentioned. Because I know that not all the names are on the list, it would be wrong of me to single out some over than others. I want to just those Conservatives that have been mentioned by name: Bill Hunt, Liz Avery, Matthew Shooter, just really sincere thanks. And to the others that I know about and those that have yet to come out, I'll be sending them my personal thanks anyway. But I think that one of the things that we reflect on is sometimes with the change that will come at election, and we saw this when we went into an overall control, is when you lose quality, when you lose a number of experienced people, whether it's through voluntarily stepping down or the election box, there's a real change in the council. And I have to say that this year, as we move towards the elections, there's a lot of quality going to be lost from this council, and that will be sorely missed by us all. And it'll take some while for those that are remaining to bring the new people up to speed. But it's also necessary for change and to move forwards, is to have new blood in, to have people whose ideas are maybe slightly different, slightly advanced, that can come along and help us old timers, as I'm now getting to be, rethink our ways and see what the future lies for us. So I don't want to drag this out any further. Just my very, very and absolute sincere thanks to all of you that have served the council. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kate. Councillor Singer, you want to sum up?
I don't think I need to add anything to that. I do think it's been good to end on a note of conciliation and friendship, and I wish all of those who are stepping down good luck in the future. It will be great to see you back at some point to open Alconbury, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes the debate on the fifth motion, but we do have to take a vote on it. But I sense that we've got a general consensus in support of the motion. So if anybody disagrees, can they now show their hands? No, in that case, thank you for the motion, and that's been passed. Thank you. Right, we now move us on to question 10. Questions 10A is Cambridge and Peterborough Combined Authority Overview and Scrutiny Committee oral questions, which will be dealt in accordance with the protocol set out in the Annex A of Part 4.1 Council Procedure Rules of the Council's Constitution. The generic report summarising the decisions made by the Combined Authorities formal committees was circulated to members on the 11th of March and published on the Council's website. As the meeting of the Combined Authority Board has not taken place since our last council meeting, can I invite members to ask questions of the Council's representatives on the Overview and Scrutiny Committee only? They are Councillors Connor and Councillor Scott. So can you please now click the raised hand function if you wish to ask a question or make a comment? We have Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. It was mentioned earlier in the meeting, and we've certainly heard it on the news, that a significant amount of money has been withheld from the Combined Authority. I would like, therefore, to ask members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to explain to us why that money has been withheld. Thank you.
Right, it requires Councillors Connor or Scott to respond to that. Do either of you wish to pick that up and respond?
Yes.
Is somebody coming in?
Yes.
Councillor Scott, do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you. If I may, thank you, Councillor Connor, and thank you, Councillor Maguire. Yes, as Councillor Whitehead mentioned, there has been media coverage of the question of £45 million. When the Combined Authority was established, £100 million was in the budget of the Combined Authority for housing within the whole of Cambridgeshire. At that time also 70 million was in the budget for Cambridge City. The media has made allusions to the fact that the 45 million is no longer to be with the Combined Authority. 55 million was paid over to the Combined Authority, and then the Combined Authority received a letter from the Minister of Housing, Communities and Local Government suggesting that there would be a delay in that 45 million coming. Subsequently, on the 15th of March, that is this Monday, when the Housing Committee had a meeting, it was advised that the 45 million a part of that 100 million is not to come, and that the housing plan that was drawn up under that original combined authority agreement would come to a conclusion in this month, that is 2021. There would be no extension to 2022. Now, I asked questions as a member of the Scrutiny Committee and as the lead on housing at that meeting, and those questions were, I expect, answered to a certain degree. It appears that the contention is that further monies will be coming, although it is unclear as to what they actually will consist of. But I did ask at that meeting what the combined authority had done in accordance with the way I read the combined authority agreement and the business case to seek alternative funds or additional funds to the government funds. In the executive summary of the business case, it is said that monies will include bringing together funding streams secured through the devolution agreement with other investments and funds secured through growth deals. Furthermore, under the commercial case, it said that the combined authority will act to bring together funding streams secured through the devolution agreement with other investments and the funds secured through growth deals. The combined authority agreement itself refers, in my view, and in clear clarity for me in the words, that action should have been taken to secure alternative sources of funding, but I was advised at that meeting no such action has been taken. That means that the planning of housing for Cambridgeshire is certainly at risk. And I simply want to conclude on this note to compare it with the 70 million that the Cambridge City Council gained. 30 new council homes have now been completed across 11 sites under the City Council program. 75 of these are net new homes, that is, did not replace existing homes which were on a redevelopment site. The council currently has 401 new council rented homes being built on site, with a further 50 starts expected by the 2021 financial year end. 16 starts are expected to fall within 2021 to 2022. Combining the projects together, we will have achieved, the City Council will have achieved the target of starting on-site or completing 500 new council homes a year ahead of schedule, and they're working towards a deadline of March 2020. I simply set that out because it seems to me that it's clear that as a member of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, we must pay attention clearly to what is happening on the combined authority.
Sorry,
point of order, please.
What's the point of order you're
are we not discussing matters of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee? Should these questions not be on that which the Overview and Scrutiny Committee have sat on, rather than what is conjecture from a meeting that took place yesterday?
That is the case. I personally was at it, so I was not able to interrupt and say it was non-factual. I'm not aware of it. But I will ask Councillor Scott to stick to answering the question that was asked of you with regard to Overview and Scrutiny. Thank you, Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I seriously object to the contention that I am conveying anything to this council that is factually incorrect. That's
not the point, though, Councillor Scott. It's whether you're answering the question related to Overview and Scrutiny, because we can all quote many facts, but not in the context of that particular committee. So could you stick to answering the question of that committee before I move on to Councillor Connor and give him the opportunity? Thank you.
Perhaps, Chair, you might have listened to what Councillor Goldsack said. He stated that I was not stating facts, that I was stating something that was factually incorrect.
You're running out of time, Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Connor, do you wish to come in?
No, I'm sorry, Chair. May I just conclude?
Oh, I thought you had. I was hoping you had. Sorry. Carry on. You have. I'll
Thank you,
set
Chair.
my timer back another 15 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I want to conclude by saying that as members of as the housing lead on the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, it is important for us to properly scrutinise what is happening at the Combined Authority, and that £45 million is not coming to the Combined Authority by order of the Minister for Local Government is a matter of serious concern, and this council should take it seriously.
Thank you, Councillor Scott.
Chair.
Councillor Connor, do you wish to come in?
Yeah, I'll just quickly say one thing, Chairman. I'm not going to carry on about it. I've no advanced knowledge of your question, Councillor Wade, but I will get back to you in the very near future with your answer to your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Connor. We now move on to 10B, which is take questions on fire authority issues. This will be dealt with in accordance with the guidelines set out in the Council's constitution. The report from the Fire Authority is included on the Council's agendas on page 29 to 32. Council can ask questions or comment on the Fire Authority business and can be invited from any member of the authority. Councillor Kevin Reynolds, the Chairman of the Fire Authority, will respond to questions on behalf of the Fire Authority. Other members on the Fire Authority are welcome to comment if they wish. Any questions that you would like to ask Councillor Reynolds to pick up? No, not seeing any questions, so you're not going to get your day here, Councillor Reynolds. So I'll move us now on to item 10C, which is written questions under the Council's Procedure Rule 9.2. A response to 2 written questions received has been provided to the political groups before the meeting and published on the Council's website. That concludes the business on the agenda today. Just before I thank members for their contribution, well, I'll thank you for your contribution. I just want to say, I would like to say thank you to the officers who have supported us and particularly who have supported myself in my role as Chairman of the Council. If I can single out people like Sally Hutchinson and in the past, Ev Speller. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this council, and thank you for your attendance today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.